They've told you that the answers lie in doing more, in achieving, in constantly moving forward. But if that were true, why do so many people who seem to have it all still feel restless, still feel overwhelmed by the noise inside? Why do you still feel stuck, lost in a loop of distractions, unable to truly hear yourself? The truth is, the answers aren't something you chase. They're something you find when you quiet the noise and allow yourself to truly listen. Buddhism teaches us this powerful truth. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. It's not about doing more, but about doing less. Less thinking, less searching, less striving. When you embrace stillness, you open yourself to a deeper connection, to the whispers of wisdom and insight that are always present, waiting for you to listen. As you listen to these teachings, something within you will shift. The constant chatter of your mind will start to fade, and in that quiet, you'll begin to hear more clearly. You'll hear the truth within, the answers you've been seeking, and a deeper understanding of the world around you. Tomorrow, when you wake up, you'll see everything through new eyes, calmer, clearer, and more aware of the profound truths that silence reveals. This isn't just another moment of quiet to pass by. It's an opportunity to listen, really listen, and discover the power that comes with stillness. Are you ready to hear what's been waiting for you? Let's begin. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. It's a phrase that resonates deeply, but how many of us truly understand its meaning? In a world full of distractions, we've grown so accustomed to noise that we forget there's a language beyond sound. Silence in Buddhism isn't simply an absence of noise. It's an invitation to something much deeper. It's a language that speaks directly to the soul, one that reveals truths beyond words and calls us to connect with something greater than ourselves. This is the first step into understanding the profound stillness of Buddhist practice, a stillness that reveals a rich, hidden language. In Buddhist teachings, silence isn't just a moment of peace or a brief pause. It's a space where the heart and mind can merge, where understanding arises without the need for explanations. Silence, when truly embraced, becomes an internal dialogue that speaks louder than any external noise. It's in that quiet space between thoughts, that moment where time seems to stretch and bend, that you begin to hear the language of the universe. For centuries, the greatest minds in Buddhism have emphasized silence as a pathway to wisdom. It's through stillness that one can access the deepest layers of reality, where everything is interconnected and where the illusion of separation disappears. In Buddhist meditation, the goal isn't to stop thinking or to force silence, but rather to allow the mind to settle into a state where it can listen without judgment, without the constant stream of thoughts clouding your awareness. This is where true understanding begins. The challenge lies in the fact that our modern world has trained us to avoid silence at all costs. We fill every moment with noise, whether it's the hum of our phones, the chatter of social media, or the constant rush of thoughts racing through our minds. But Buddhist practice teaches us that silence is where wisdom grows. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. This is the heart of Buddhist meditation. Quieting the mind enough to hear the whispers of truth that have always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. When you first begin to explore silence through Buddhist practices, it can feel strange. The mind doesn't know how to rest. It's used to the constant chatter and the demands of daily life. But with patience, silence becomes a tool, not just for relaxation or escape, but for deep insight and connection. The more you sit in that stillness, the more you begin to hear the subtle movements of your own heart. You start to feel the pulse of life in a way that words cannot describe. In Buddhism, silence isn't simply a form of stillness, but an active participant in the path toward enlightenment. It's a way of listening beyond the surface, beyond the ordinary sounds of the world, to the deeper currents of reality. This is where the Buddha's teachings begin to take root. Through silence, you can hear the essence of all things, without the interference of the ego or the distractions of external influences. It's in this silence that you can connect with your true nature, the essence of who you are beneath the layers of conditioning and societal expectations. True silence, in this sense, is more than just the absence of sound. It's a presence that allows you to tune into the subtle vibrations of existence, the quiet hum that flows through everything. When the noise of the world fades away, you become more attuned to the impermanence of all things. Silence reveals the ever-changing nature of reality, where nothing stays the same for long and everything is in constant flux. This is a profound realization in Buddhism, that all things are impermanent, and silence is the perfect medium through which this truth is revealed. The hidden language of silence speaks to us in ways that words cannot. It is a call to return to our natural state, free from the distractions and noise of everyday life. As you sit in meditation, the practice of silence becomes less about doing and more about being. You let go of the need to control, the need to think, the need to fix or analyze. And in that space of surrender, the language of silence begins to reveal itself. You begin to hear the truth of who you are and the truth of the world around you. This language is not one that can be understood by the intellect alone. It's felt in the body, experienced in the heart, and understood by the soul. In silence, there's a deep sense of interconnectedness, a realization that we are all part of something much greater than ourselves. It's a recognition that despite the seeming chaos of life, there is an underlying harmony that holds everything together. The quieter you become, the more you can hear this harmony, and in that hearing, you find peace. The soundless language of silence invites us to tune in to the subtle energies around us, energies that are often overlooked in our fast-paced world. It's not just about the absence of sound, it's about the presence of everything else. In this stillness, we can hear the unspoken words of the heart, the whispers of nature, the pulse of the universe. It's in these moments of deep quiet that we come to understand the interconnectedness of all things. And this understanding is the foundation of wisdom in Buddhist practice. As you continue to deepen your practice, the hidden language of silence becomes more apparent. You begin to notice the spaces between your thoughts, the moments of pause that allow you to access a deeper awareness. In these spaces, you hear things you've never heard before, the subtle truth of your emotions, the gentle call of your inner wisdom, the quiet knowing that comes from being present in the moment. But this isn't an easy path. The mind is restless, constantly pulling you away from the present moment. Silence requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to let go of control. It's not about escaping the world or retreating into isolation. It's about being present with what is, without judgment or attachment. This is the essence of Buddhist meditation. to sit with the discomfort, to embrace the silence, and to allow it to reveal its wisdom. Over time, as you practice sitting in silence, you'll begin to notice a shift. The chatter of the mind will quiet, not because you've forced it, but because you've created the conditions for it to settle. And in that quiet, you'll begin to hear the language of the soul. It speaks in subtle whispers, in moments of clarity, in the deep peace that comes from simply being. This is the power of silence in Buddhism. It's not a passive act, but an active engagement with the present moment. Through silence, you tune into the deeper currents of life, the vibrations that hold everything together. And in that tuning, you discover the wisdom and peace that have always been there, waiting for you to hear. As you embrace this hidden language, you begin to understand the true meaning of life, that everything is interconnected, everything is impermanent, and everything is in a constant state of change. Silence teaches you to listen to these truths without resistance, without the need to understand them intellectually. Instead, you hear them with your whole being, and in that hearing, you find liberation. So, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. Not just with your ears, but with your heart, your mind, and your soul. Silence, in Buddhism, is not a void, but a space of profound insight and wisdom. It's a language that speaks to the depths of your being, inviting you to listen, to understand, and to connect with the world in a way that is deeper, richer, and more meaningful. As you continue your journey into silence, know that this language will become more familiar, more accessible. The more you listen, the more you will hear, not just the outer world, but the inner world as well. And in that listening, you will discover the peace and clarity that have always been there, waiting for you to uncover. As we've explored the profound language of silence in Buddhism, we can now begin to uncover an even deeper layer of that silence, one that goes beyond the audible. Silence, when fully embraced, reveals something extraordinary, a deeper, subtler dimension of sound that transcends the physical world. It's as if, in the space between words, something powerful stirs, waiting to be heard. This is not the sound we hear with our ears, but the sound that resonates on a different frequency, one that speaks to the heart, the soul, and the very essence of existence itself. It's a sound not of noise, but of stillness, a sound that carries wisdom, peace, and a connection to the universe in a way that words can't quite capture. We've already touched on how silence in its deepest form is not simply the absence of sound, but the presence of something much greater. It's this stillness, the kind of quiet that silences the noise of everyday life, that reveals a sound beyond hearing. This sound doesn't come from an external source. It comes from the heart of the universe itself. When you quiet your mind enough to listen, you tap into a frequency that connects everything. The quieter you become, the more this deeper sound becomes available to you. In Buddhism, true stillness is not just about silence, but about discovering a new way of perceiving. The noise we hear every day is often just the surface-level disturbance, the distractions that cloud our ability to experience the world as it truly is. When you sit in meditation or engage in mindful practice, you're not just shutting out external noise, you're tuning into a deeper rhythm, one that transcends the usual limits of sound. This sound is not defined by physical vibrations, it's the sound of being itself. It's the pulse of life, the hum of existence, and the quiet resonance that surrounds you in every moment. The Buddha spoke of the unheard sound, something that exists beyond the limits of ordinary perception. It's not a sound that can be captured by instruments or measured in decibels. It's the subtle vibration of the universe, the underlying harmony that connects all living things. When the mind is still, this sound becomes accessible. It's a hum that carries deep meaning, connecting you not just to the present moment, but to the essence of life itself. This is why, in Buddhist meditation, silence is more than a simple act of stillness. It's a gateway to an entirely new experience of sound. When you are no longer distracted by external noise or the constant chatter of your thoughts, you begin to perceive a deeper resonance, a vibration that holds the secrets of the universe. In this stillness, you connect with the pulse of life, the subtle sound that flows through everything. It is in this sacred quiet that you start to hear the true nature of existence, one that transcends the physical limitations of the world. There is an old Buddhist teaching that the sound of the universe is like a bell ringing in the distance, one that cannot be heard with the ears but felt with the heart. This sound is timeless. It is the rhythm of the cosmos, the very beat of existence, and yet it's only in silence, in the stillness, that it becomes audible. Just as you cannot hear the vibrations of a bell unless you first still your own mind, so too must you quiet the distractions of the world in order to hear the deeper sounds that life offers. True silence, in this sense, is not just about the absence of noise, but about a shift in perception. It's a retuning of your consciousness, allowing you to step beyond the limits of your ordinary senses and connect with a dimension of existence that is often overlooked. The stillness in Buddhism isn't a withdrawal from the world, but a fuller immersion in it. It's not that the world becomes quieter, rather, you become more attuned to the hidden sounds that speak to the soul. In this space, you can hear what has always been there, waiting patiently for you to notice. When the mind becomes still, you begin to hear the sound of the present moment. It's the sound of awareness, of pure consciousness that isn't disturbed by the clutter of thoughts or distractions. It's the sound of life unfolding, moment by moment, without the interference of the ego or the constant need to label or judge. This is the true sound of stillness, the sound that carries you deeper into understanding, deeper into connection, and deeper into the experience of life itself. But how does one access this deeper sound? The key lies in cultivating deep, uninterrupted silence, the kind that allows the mind to settle and the heart to open. Meditation is often seen as the gateway to this silence, but it's not the act of meditation itself that creates this shift. It's the intention behind it. When you sit in silence, your goal is not to stop your thoughts or to force stillness into being. Instead, it is to allow the mind to rest and to listen deeply, without expectations, without attachment. The moment you stop trying to control your experience and simply be, the deeper sound of stillness becomes clearer. The more you practice this deep listening, the more you will attune yourself to the subtle rhythms of existence. You will begin to hear the sound that isn't heard with the ears, but felt in the heart. It's the sound of life, of interconnection, and of the constant flow of energy that moves through all things. This sound isn't something you can intellectualize or explain. It's an experience, a direct connection to the pulse of the universe that transcends words. In Buddhist teachings, the sound of stillness is often described as a form of wisdom. It's the wisdom that arises when the mind is free from the distractions of daily life and can fully immerse itself in the present moment. This is the wisdom that connects you to the deeper truths of life. Truths that go beyond intellectual understanding and into direct experience. It's the wisdom that arises from simply being, from listening deeply, and from allowing the world to unfold without interference. But why is this so important? In Buddhism, the understanding of sound and stillness is tied to the concept of impermanence. Everything in the world is constantly changing, constantly shifting, and the deeper sound of stillness reflects this truth. It's a reminder that nothing stays the same, that everything is in constant motion, and that the key to true peace lies in accepting this flow of change. The sound of stillness is a reflection of this impermanence, a reminder that everything is interconnected and ever-changing. It teaches us to listen without attachment, to observe without clinging, and to experience life as it is, constantly evolving and always in motion. The sound of stillness also reveals something profound about the nature of suffering. In Buddhism, the cessation of suffering is not found in the absence of pain or difficulty, but in the awareness of the present moment. By attuning ourselves to the deeper sound of existence, we come to understand that suffering is not a permanent state, but a transient one. It arises and passes, just like the sounds in the world. When you can fully embrace the present moment, when you can listen to the deeper sound of stillness, you come to realize that everything, even pain, is impermanent. This understanding brings freedom, the freedom to live fully in each moment without being weighed down by the past or anxious about the future. Listening to the sound of stillness also opens the door to compassion. In the quiet, you can hear the pain of others, not through words, but through the shared energy of existence. It's a deep, non-verbal understanding that we are all interconnected. This is where true compassion arises, in the recognition that the suffering of others is our suffering, and their joy is our joy. The sound of stillness is a reminder that everything in the universe is connected, and that by cultivating deep listening, we can tap into a deeper sense of empathy and kindness. In Buddhism, the stillness of sound also teaches us the importance of letting go. The sound of the present moment cannot be controlled. It cannot be held on to. It is constantly in motion, constantly flowing, just like our thoughts and emotions. By letting go of the need to control or grasp at the sounds of life, we open ourselves up to experiencing them more fully. This is the essence of mindfulness, being fully present in each moment without trying to hold on to it or change it. When you can listen to the deeper sound of stillness, you learn to accept things as they are, without judgment or resistance. This deeper dimension of sound in Buddhism doesn't just serve as a way to connect with the present moment. It also serves as a profound reminder of the interconnectedness of all beings. When we listen to the true sound of stillness, we hear not just our own hearts, but the hearts of others as well. We hear the rhythm of the earth, the pulse of nature, and the hum of the universe itself. In this listening, we come to realize that we are not separate from the world around us, but intimately connected to it in ways that words can't fully express. In the end, the sound of stillness is not something that can be easily described or understood. It's an experience that can only be felt, heard and understood in the quiet moments when you allow yourself to truly listen. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. And in this deeper listening, you connect with the wisdom, compassion, and peace that have always been available to you, waiting for you to listen deeply and embrace the true sound of existence. As we've just explored, the stillness of silence reveals a deeper, more subtle dimension of sound, an intricate and subtle hum that connects us to the fabric of the universe. But what happens when that stillness extends beyond the external world and into the depths of the mind? What occurs when we quiet the noise within us, allowing ourselves to fully attune to the quiet, almost imperceptible whispers of inner wisdom? The mind is a powerful force, often overwhelmed by the endless waves of thoughts, judgments, and distractions. Yet, when we manage to still this constant flow, something remarkable happens. We open ourselves to a profound source of guidance, one that is always present, but so often drowned out by the cacophony of daily life. The quiet mind, in Buddhist teachings, is not a mind that has ceased to think entirely, but a mind that has learned to let go of unnecessary noise. It's the kind of clarity that enables you to hear the subtle nudges of wisdom, the kind of guidance that doesn't shout, but whispers softly, like a gentle breeze brushing against the surface of the soul. This quiet mind is the key to understanding enlightenment. The path to enlightenment in Buddhism isn't about adding more information, accumulating more knowledge, or seeking external answers. It's about quieting the constant chatter of the mind and tuning into the deeper truths that already reside within. The quieter you become, the more you can hear the whispers of wisdom that guide you towards true understanding. These whispers are not loud proclamations or obvious answers, but subtle nudges and insights that arise from the stillness within. In that quiet space, you are able to hear your own inner voice, the part of you that has always known the way. When the mind is quiet, you're no longer reacting to life's distractions. Instead, you can hear your inner wisdom with clarity. You can sense the truth beneath your thoughts and feelings, free from the filters of fear, doubt, or attachment. It's in this state of stillness that true insight arises. You begin to understand things not because someone has told you or because you have reasoned them out, but because you've created the conditions for that wisdom to emerge from within. This is the transformative power of a quiet mind. True enlightenment, according to Buddhist teachings, doesn't come from external sources. It doesn't come from studying texts, achieving milestones, or gaining accolades. It comes from within. It arises when the mind is still, when you stop searching externally for answers and instead listen to the deeper truths that are present within you all along. These truths are subtle, often overlooked, and difficult to grasp when your mind is consumed with distractions and noise. But when you calm the storm inside, these truths become clear and unmistakable. This state of inner stillness, however, is not easily attained. In our daily lives, we are constantly bombarded with noise, thoughts, emotions, desires, and worries that keep us from accessing our deeper wisdom. We live in a world that encourages constant action, constant thinking, and constant doing. Yet, it is only when we embrace the art of stillness that we open ourselves to the transformative power of the quiet mind. The Buddhist practice of meditation is one of the primary ways to cultivate this quiet mind. Meditation allows us to step away from the noise of daily life and find a space of deep calm. It is not about forcing the mind to be still, but about creating an environment in which the mind can settle naturally. As you meditate, you may notice that your thoughts do not disappear. Instead, they slow down. They no longer control you. You are able to observe them without judgment or attachment. This distance allows you to step into a deeper awareness, a state in which the whispers of wisdom are no longer drowned out by the relentless noise of the world. In this stillness, you begin to hear things that were once inaudible. The mind becomes a clear, receptive space, and in that clarity, your inner wisdom shines through. This wisdom is not intellectual knowledge, but an intuitive knowing that arises from a place of deep presence. It is the kind of knowing that comes not from analysis or reason, but from being fully attuned to the present moment, free from distraction and judgment. In the quiet mind, there is also a deep sense of peace. This peace is not an escape from the world or from the difficulties of life, but rather a profound acceptance of what is. When the mind is still, it is no longer in conflict with itself or with the world around it. You are able to experience life as it is, without the constant pull of desire, fear, or aversion. This peace is the foundation of true enlightenment. It allows you to live fully in the present moment, without being overwhelmed by past regrets or future anxieties. This sense of peace and clarity allows you to respond to life with greater wisdom. Instead of reacting impulsively or emotionally, you can respond thoughtfully and with a deep sense of understanding. The quieter your mind becomes, the more you are able to make decisions that are aligned with your true self, not with the passing whims of ego or attachment. You start to hear the whispers of your higher self, guiding you towards choices that bring you closer to your authentic path. As you continue to quiet the mind, you'll also begin to notice that you experience life with greater compassion. The stillness within allows you to see the world more clearly and without the distortions of judgment or fear. You become more attuned to the needs of others, more empathetic and present. Your compassion grows not because you are trying to be compassionate, but because the quiet mind allows you to tap into a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. In this stillness, you begin to see that your suffering is the suffering of others, and their joy is your joy. The quiet mind also deepens your connection to the world around you. It's easy to feel disconnected when we are consumed by our thoughts and worries. But when the mind is still, we become more aware of the world as it truly is. We begin to notice the subtleties of our environment, the way the wind feels against our skin, the rhythm of the birdsong in the morning, the warmth of the sun on our face. In this way, stillness brings us closer to nature and to the present moment, which is the only moment that truly exists. It's important to remember that this quieting of the mind is not a one-time event. It's a continual practice, one that deepens over time. The more you practice stillness, the more you will be able to access the whispers of wisdom that lie within. You will begin to hear the subtle guidance that has always been available to you, but that you couldn't hear before because your mind was too loud. And as you continue to listen, you will find that the whispers of wisdom become clearer and more distinct. The quiet mind opens the door to a life of greater insight, greater peace, and greater alignment with your true self. The process of stilling the mind is not about eliminating all thoughts or seeking to become completely thoughtless. It's about cultivating a state of awareness where you can observe your thoughts without becoming attached to them. The quiet mind is a mind that is clear and present, one that is not ruled by thoughts, emotions, or external distractions. In this clarity, the whispers of wisdom can be heard. Enlightenment, in Buddhism, is not something that can be attained through intellectual knowledge or external achievement. It is something that arises when the mind is still, when we are able to listen deeply to the quiet whispers of wisdom that arise from within. This wisdom guides us towards understanding, compassion, and peace. It's in the quiet moments, the moments when we are truly present, that we find the clarity we seek. So, the next time you find yourself overwhelmed by the noise of life, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply, quiet your thoughts, and listen. In the stillness, you will hear the whispers of wisdom that can guide you towards true peace, true understanding, and true enlightenment. The quieter you become, the more you can hear, and in that hearing, you will find the path to your truest self. As we have explored, the quiet mind is where we begin to hear the whispers of wisdom, those subtle nudges that guide us toward deeper understanding. But what happens when we take this further? When we begin to pay attention to the moments between those whispers, the spaces where thoughts dissolve and clarity emerges. These moments are often fleeting, easily overlooked, but they are the key to unlocking profound insights that can shape our understanding of the world and ourselves. It's in the silence between thoughts that the true clarity of stillness is found, a place where the mind, free from the clutter of constant thinking, can finally see things as they truly are. The silence between thoughts is not a void, it is a gateway. It's the space that exists in the brief moments before a new thought arises, the pause between breaths, the stillness that holds the potential for new realizations. It is in these intervals that the mind is free from its usual distractions. It is in these spaces that we experience the pure essence of awareness, where the noise of our inner world fades and the truth of the present moment becomes sharply clear. When we begin to sit with this silence, when we stop filling every moment with thoughts and judgments, something remarkable happens. We start to notice the subtle shifts in our awareness, the endless stream of thoughts, worries, and distractions that once seemed so loud begin to fall away, and in their place, a new kind of clarity emerges, one that isn't based on reasoning or analysis, but on direct experience. It's a clarity that arises from simply being present, without the need to attach meaning to every moment or rush to conclusions. In Buddhism, this space between thoughts is often referred to as the gap. It's a brief but profound moment where the mind is not consumed by its habitual thinking. This gap is not a temporary escape from thought, but rather an opportunity to experience life as it is, without the filters and distortions of the mind. It is in this gap that we touch the very essence of clarity, a state of awareness that is free from judgment, comparison, and attachment. Many of us live in a constant state of mental busyness. Our thoughts race from one thing to the next, creating a whirlwind of distractions that prevent us from truly being present in the moment. But it's in the stillness, the moments between those thoughts, that we find the clarity we so often seek. These moments don't come with force. They arise naturally when we stop trying to control or manage every aspect of our experience. By allowing our thoughts to arise and fall away without attaching ourselves to them, we open ourselves to the deeper currents of insight that reside just beneath the surface. The more we practice this stillness, the more we begin to recognize the beauty of these gaps between thoughts. They become a space of freedom, a place where clarity is not only possible, but inevitable. When we quiet the mental chatter, we create the conditions for deeper understanding to arise. It's in this silence that we can see things as they truly are, free from the distortions created by our conditioned mind. What's remarkable about the silence between thoughts is that it is not something we actively create, but something we make space for. When we learn to sit with the natural flow of our thoughts without judgment or attachment, we create room for the gaps to emerge. These gaps are not empty. They are filled with the possibility of insight. They are the doorway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. In meditation, this practice of noticing the gaps between thoughts is often referred to as mindfulness. It's the practice of observing the flow of thoughts without becoming attached to them, of allowing each thought to arise and fade away naturally. As you practice mindfulness, you begin to notice that the gaps between thoughts become longer and more pronounced. In these gaps, there is a profound stillness that is full of insight and clarity. This is where the deeper wisdom of the mind can be accessed. The wisdom that doesn't come from intellectual understanding, but from direct experience. The beauty of the silence between thoughts is that it is always present. It's not something we need to search for or create, but something we simply need to recognize. The more we tune into this silence, the more we begin to see how much of our experience is shaped by our thoughts and mental patterns. When we remove these mental filters, we begin to see things in their purest form. It's in the gaps that we truly understand the nature of impermanence, of change, and of the fleeting nature of our experiences. As we continue to explore the silence between thoughts, we begin to see how this space offers us a kind of mental clarity that is different from the clarity we gain through intellectual analysis. This clarity is not about gathering more information or accumulating knowledge. Instead, it's about shedding the layers of mental clutter that obscure our true perception. It's about seeing the world clearly without the lens of past experiences, expectations, or judgments. This is the essence of enlightenment, the ability to see things as they truly are, free from the conditioning of the mind. This clarity also brings with it a sense of peace. When the mind is quiet, when we let go of the need to control or fix everything, we experience a profound sense of inner peace. This peace arises not because our circumstances have changed, but because our relationship with our thoughts and emotions has shifted. In the silence between thoughts, we are no longer at the mercy of our mental patterns. We become free from the constant fluctuations of the mind and can experience life in its purest form. In Buddhist teachings, this clarity is often described as insight. Insight is not something we seek or strive for, but something that arises naturally when we are able to step back from the noise of our thoughts and simply observe. This insight helps us understand the true nature of things, the nature of suffering, the impermanence of life, and the interconnectedness of all beings. It is in the gaps between thoughts that we begin to see the world with fresh eyes, unclouded by the biases and judgments of our habitual thinking. The silence between thoughts also reveals the nature of the self. When we observe our thoughts without attachment, we begin to see that they are not who we are. We are not our thoughts, emotions, or experiences. We are the awareness that observes them. This realization is a profound shift in understanding, one that frees us from the constant cycle of identification with the mind. We begin to see that we are not the thinker, but the witness to the thoughts. This realization is liberating, as it allows us to let go of the need to control or fix our thoughts and simply allow them to pass by like clouds in the sky. In these moments of clarity, we also begin to understand the deep interconnectedness of all things. The silence between thoughts allows us to see that we are not separate from the world around us, but deeply connected to it. This insight into interconnectedness is the foundation of compassion. When we see that all beings are part of the same interconnected web, we naturally develop a sense of empathy and compassion for others. The clarity of stillness opens our hearts to the suffering of the world, and we are moved to act with kindness and care. Through continued practice, the gaps between thoughts become more frequent, and the insights that arise in these moments become deeper. The more we tune into this silence, the more we begin to see how our habitual patterns of thinking cloud our perception. We realize that much of our suffering arises from our attachment to thoughts, our identification with them. In the gaps between thoughts, we find freedom. The freedom to experience life as it is, without the interference of our habitual mental patterns. The practice of observing the space between thoughts also helps us understand impermanence. Our thoughts, like everything else, are constantly changing. They arise, they linger for a moment, and then they fade away. This is the nature of all things. They are impermanent and transient. By observing the gaps between thoughts, we come to understand that everything in life is in constant flux. This realization helps us let go of our attachments and desires, as we see that nothing lasts forever. The clarity of impermanence brings peace, as we begin to accept life as it is, without clinging to anything. In conclusion, the silence between thoughts is not a void, but a profound gateway to clarity, insight, and peace. It is in these moments of stillness that we can hear the truth, unclouded by the distractions of the mind. When we learn to sit with these gaps and observe them without judgment or attachment, we begin to see the world in its purest form. In these spaces, we discover the true nature of the self, the impermanence of life, and the interconnectedness of all beings. This practice is the path to enlightenment, not through the accumulation of knowledge, but through the direct experience of the present moment. The silence between thoughts is the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of life, and it is in these moments that we come to know ourselves and the world more fully. As we have already explored, the silence between thoughts is where true clarity begins to take shape, revealing insights and realizations that guide us towards deeper understanding. But what happens when we take this stillness even further? What if, by quieting the mind, we not only find clarity, but also unlock an inner wisdom that goes beyond logical thinking? This wisdom is not something we study or acquire through intellectual effort, but something that arises naturally when we allow the mind to rest, clear of distractions. It's a kind of intuitive knowledge, one that Buddhist practitioners have long recognized and cultivated through stillness. When the mind is quiet, the space opens for deeper truths to emerge, not through reasoning, but through an innate knowing that transcends the ordinary thinking process. Inner silence isn't simply the absence of mental noise. It's a fertile ground where intuitive wisdom can grow. Buddhist practitioners have known this for centuries. Through meditation and mindfulness, they've cultivated the ability to tune into this quiet space where they are more in touch with their deeper selves and the world around them. The key lies in creating the conditions for the mind to rest and allowing this silence to reveal a knowing that is often far more accurate and profound than anything derived from pure thought. This is the essence of Buddhist intuition, a wisdom that arises from stillness, a knowing that comes from beyond the realm of logical thinking. When the mind is quiet, it isn't just a passive state of non-thinking, it's an active state of receptivity. A mind that is free of distractions becomes an open channel for insights, intuition, and wisdom that would otherwise be drowned out by the noise of daily life. The quieter you become, the more in touch you become with the deeper, intuitive layers of the mind. It's in this state that the truth reveals itself, not as something you learn or grasp, but as something that simply arises when the mental chatter ceases. Buddhist intuition doesn't arise from logic or intellectual reasoning. It arises from the ability to step beyond the ordinary patterns of thinking and connect with a deeper knowing that transcends concepts. It's an intuitive wisdom that flows when the mind is free of judgments, desires, and attachments. In this quiet space, the truth is not something you analyze, but something you recognize and understand on a deeper level. It's as though, in the stillness, the layers of mental conditioning fall away, leaving space for a wisdom that speaks directly to the heart and soul. This intuitive wisdom, often referred to in Buddhism as prajna, is not a fleeting experience, but a constant presence within us, accessible only when the mind is quiet enough to receive it. Through practices such as meditation, one can begin to attune themselves to this inner wisdom. At first, it may seem faint, like a distant murmur, but as we continue to cultivate stillness, this wisdom grows clearer, more direct, and more powerful. The more we quiet the distractions of our everyday thoughts, the more the intuitive wisdom of the mind becomes accessible to us. The role of inner silence in unlocking Buddhist intuition is deeply tied to the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just about being present in the moment, but about training the mind to be fully aware and receptive without judgment or attachment. It's through mindfulness that we begin to create the space necessary for our intuition to arise. As we cultivate the ability to observe our thoughts without reacting to them, we develop the ability to simply be with our experience without cluttering it with mental distractions. In this stillness, we are able to tune into the subtle guidance that our inner wisdom offers. As the mind quiets, the tendency to react to situations fades away, allowing for a more measured and thoughtful response. This shift in awareness isn't just about reducing mental noise. It's about tuning into a deeper intelligence, one that knows the best course of action without needing to overthink it. This is the intuitive wisdom that comes through silence, a knowing that is direct, free from doubt or analysis, and guided by the clarity of the present moment. The more we quiet our minds, the more we allow ourselves to be receptive to this guidance. Buddhist intuition is also connected to the idea of non-attachment. The more we hold on to our thoughts, ideas, and beliefs, the more we cloud our ability to receive intuitive wisdom. In order to access this deeper knowing, we must let go of our attachment to what we think we know. When we cling to fixed ideas or expectations, we close ourselves off to new understanding. However, when we quiet the mind and release our attachment to preconceptions, we create space for intuitive wisdom to emerge. This wisdom is fluid, not confined by rigid structures or beliefs. It is guided by the present moment, responding to the ever-changing nature of reality. This wisdom also comes with a deep sense of trust. Trust in yourself, in the process, and in the universe. The more we cultivate silence within, the more we learn to trust the intuitive wisdom that arises from that stillness. It's not a trust based on logic or reason, but a trust rooted in the deep knowing that comes from the heart. This trust allows us to let go of the need for constant control, to release the need for certainty, and to allow life to unfold with a sense of ease and flow. As we continue to quiet our minds and deepen our practice, we find that our intuitive wisdom becomes sharper and more immediate. In Buddhist teachings, this wisdom is not something we actively seek, but something that emerges when we create the conditions for it to arise. Just as a flower blooms when it is nurtured with care, our inner wisdom unfolds when we create the conditions for stillness to thrive. This intuitive wisdom can be applied to all areas of life. In moments of decision-making, it guides us toward the choices that are aligned with our deeper truth. It allows us to act with clarity, free from the confusion that often arises from overthinking or emotional reactivity. The quieter we become, the more we are able to hear this guidance in real time. It becomes our constant companion, offering insight and direction without the need for words or explanations. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from cultivating the space within to allow wisdom to arise naturally. The more we quiet the mind and tune into our inner stillness, the more this wisdom becomes available to us. It is a wisdom that doesn't rely on external teachings or the opinions of others, but arises from within, from our connection to the present moment and the deeper truths of existence. The practice of mindfulness and meditation helps us build this connection to our inner wisdom. But it's important to understand that this connection isn't something we force or try to achieve. It's a natural process that unfolds when we stop resisting it. The more we allow ourselves to be present with our thoughts and experiences without judgment or attachment, the more we create space for intuitive wisdom to emerge. This wisdom is already within us, waiting to be recognized, and it is through stillness that we unlock its power. The role of inner silence in unlocking Buddhist intuition also points to a deeper truth about the nature of reality itself. When we quiet the mind, we begin to perceive the world differently. We stop seeing everything through the lens of our conditioned thoughts and beliefs and start seeing it as it truly is. This shift in perception allows us to tap into a deeper wisdom, one that is not shaped by the ego or the individual self, but by the interconnectedness of all things. This is the true essence of Buddhist intuition, a wisdom that is universal, free from the limitations of the self, and rooted in the awareness of the present moment. As we continue to deepen our practice of inner silence, we find that our intuitive wisdom becomes not just a tool for understanding the world, but a guide for living with greater compassion and clarity. This wisdom opens our hearts to the suffering of others and compels us to act with kindness and understanding. It frees us from the illusions of separation and connects us to the greater whole. Through the quieting of the mind, we unlock the full potential of our intuition, a wisdom that guides us toward a life of peace, clarity, and compassion. In conclusion, the role of inner silence in unlocking Buddhist intuition is not about acquiring more knowledge or gaining intellectual insight. It is about quieting the mind and creating the conditions for deeper wisdom to emerge. This wisdom arises naturally when we release our attachment to thoughts, judgments, and beliefs. Through stillness, we begin to tune into a deeper knowing, one that is free from the clutter of mental noise and rooted in the present moment. The more we cultivate this inner silence, the more we are able to hear the intuitive wisdom that guides us on our journey towards enlightenment. Having explored how inner silence unlocks the profound wisdom of intuitive guidance, we now turn inward once more, this time to the very heart of the matter. While the quiet mind opens the door to deeper understanding and insight, it is the heart that often carries the truest wisdom, the deeper truths that lead us back to our authentic selves. In Buddhism, there is a deep connection between silence and the ability to hear the voice of the heart, a voice that is always present, yet often overshadowed by the noise of external demands and inner distractions. When we create enough space within ourselves to quiet the mind, we open the gateway to the profound stillness of the heart, where the deepest truths reside. The heart, in Buddhist teachings, is not just a physical organ, but a symbolic center of wisdom, compassion, and authenticity. It is the seat of our true nature, where we can align with the deeper currents of life and find peace amidst the chaos of the world. But to hear this wisdom, we must first learn to listen. And listening, in this context, is more than just hearing words or sounds. It is an act of being fully present with what is within, without judgment or interference. True listening in Buddhism requires a deep kind of silence, one that clears away the mental noise and distractions that so often prevent us from hearing the whispers of the heart. The silence of the heart is different from the silence of the mind. While the mind's silence is often a product of discipline and practice, the silence of the heart arises naturally when we allow ourselves to be truly present with our emotions, desires, and inner experiences. It is in this space that the heart can speak freely, unencumbered by the clutter of external expectations or inner conflict. When we listen to the silence of our hearts, we begin to reconnect with our authentic selves, the part of us that is always aligned with truth and compassion. But how do we listen to the silence of the heart? It requires patience and openness, a willingness to sit in the quiet and allow whatever arises to surface without judgment or resistance. Many of us have learned to ignore or suppress our emotions, thoughts, and desires because they are uncomfortable or inconvenient. Yet, true peace and wisdom arise only when we allow ourselves to feel fully, without the need to control or deny our experiences. In Buddhist practice, the act of sitting with discomfort, the willingness to be present with whatever arises, is key to reconnecting with the heart. It is in the space of acceptance that the deepest truths begin to emerge. The silence of the heart is often quiet, subtle, and easy to overlook. But it is there, waiting for us to recognize it. The more we practice creating silence, the more we begin to hear this deeper truth. It is not something we need to search for or force. It simply arises when we make space for it. Just as the silence between thoughts allows us to experience clarity, the silence within the heart reveals the simplicity and depth of our true nature. In this silence, we are no longer defined by the roles we play or the stories we tell ourselves. We are simply present, open, and receptive to the pure truth that lies within. Listening to the silence of the heart also invites us to connect with the deeper currents of compassion. In Buddhism, the heart is not just a place of wisdom, but also of boundless compassion. The more we tune into this silence, the more we naturally align with the compassionate aspects of our being. Compassion, in its truest form, arises not from the mind, but from the heart. When we quiet the mind enough to hear the heart, we begin to feel the suffering of others more deeply, not as a mental exercise, but as a natural extension of our own being. This compassion is unforced, not motivated by guilt or obligation, but by a deep, innate understanding of our shared humanity. By listening to the silence of our own hearts, we begin to understand what it truly means to be authentic. The heart, free from the distortions of the ego and the noise of the world, speaks directly to our deepest desires and truths. It does not seek approval or validation from external sources, but instead aligns us with our most genuine selves. In Buddhist teachings, this alignment is often described as being in harmony with Dharma, or the natural law of the universe. When we listen to the heart's silence, we are naturally led toward actions that are in harmony with our true nature, free from the conditioning and distractions of the world. However, listening to the heart's silence requires courage. In a world that often prioritizes intellect and external achievement, it can be difficult to trust the heart's subtle guidance. The mind often questions and overanalyzes, seeking certainty in a world full of ambiguity. But true silence, the silence of the heart, exists beyond doubt and fear. It invites us to step into the unknown, to trust our inner wisdom, and to follow the path that feels true, even if it doesn't make sense on a surface level. The heart's wisdom is not concerned with outcomes, success or failure. It is concerned with alignment. Alignment with our authentic selves, with the world, and with the deeper truths of existence. Listening to the silence of the heart also means cultivating awareness of our emotions and desires without being controlled by them. Often, our hearts speak through feelings, sadness, joy, anger, fear, emotions that can overwhelm us if we are not careful. However, Buddhism teaches that emotions themselves are not the problem. It is our attachment to them, our identification with them, that causes suffering. By learning to listen to our emotions without judgment, we allow the heart's wisdom to emerge naturally. We no longer suppress or avoid our feelings, but rather we sit with them in silence, allowing them to guide us toward greater understanding. In the silence of the heart, we come to understand the impermanence of all things. Emotions, like thoughts, are temporary. They arise, they linger, and they pass. By listening to the silence within, we begin to realize that no feeling or experience defines us permanently. We are not our emotions or thoughts. We are the awareness that experiences them. This realization frees us from the endless cycle of attachment and aversion, allowing us to experience life with greater peace and ease. The more we listen to the silence of the heart, the more we learn to accept ourselves as we are. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we resist or reject what is. We often try to escape from our emotions, our imperfections, and our flaws, believing that we must be perfect in order to be worthy. But true worthiness, according to Buddhist teachings, arises from simply being who we are, free from the need for validation or external approval. By listening to the silence of the heart, we come to embrace our imperfections as part of our humanity. We accept ourselves fully, knowing that we are worthy not because of what we do or how we appear, but because we are simply alive and connected to the greater flow of existence. Listening to the silence of the heart also requires us to develop patience. The heart's wisdom does not come in bursts of excitement or urgency. It comes in quiet moments, often slowly and with time. Patience is necessary to cultivate the ability to hear the subtle messages of the heart. In a world that often prioritizes instant results and quick fixes, it can be challenging to sit in silence and wait for the heart's wisdom to reveal itself. Yet, it is through this patience that we allow the heart's truth to unfold naturally, without forcing or rushing the process. The ultimate reward for listening to the silence of our hearts is inner peace. When we are aligned with the wisdom of the heart, we are no longer at odds with ourselves. We no longer feel the need to strive or struggle against life. Instead, we flow with it, accepting each moment as it comes and trusting that we are exactly where we need to be. The silence of the heart brings us into harmony with ourselves and the world around us, allowing us to live with a sense of purpose and clarity. It is in this silence that we find the freedom to be fully ourselves, to live authentically, and to connect deeply with the world. Listening to the silence of the heart is not an event, but a process, a lifelong journey of uncovering the deeper truths within, letting go of distractions, and learning to trust the wisdom that already resides within us. In Buddhist practice, this process is an ongoing practice of mindfulness, meditation, and self-awareness. The more we listen, the clearer the heart's voice becomes, guiding us towards a life of greater peace, compassion, and authenticity. Having explored the deep wisdom that lies in listening to the silence of the heart, we now turn towards another profound truth that silence brings into focus: the impermanence of life. We live in a world constantly shifting, where everything, from our emotions to the very circumstances we find ourselves in, is in a constant state of change. But how often do we actually sit with that truth, allowing ourselves to truly feel and understand its depth? In Buddhist teachings, silence is not only a tool for quieting the mind, but also for experiencing the reality of impermanence in a way that brings liberation, peace, and deep understanding. When we silence the mind, we make space for the truth of life's impermanence to resonate within us, moving us closer to acceptance, to clarity, and ultimately to freedom. Impermanence, or anicca, is one of the core teachings of Buddhism. It reminds us that nothing in life remains static. Everything is in a constant state of flux. The more we understand this truth, the less we cling to things, people, or situations, and the more we come to realize that our attachment to the temporary causes unnecessary suffering. Silence plays an essential role in helping us experience this truth more deeply. When the mind is quiet, it is easier to feel the movement of life, to sense the transient nature of our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Rather than pushing against the flow of change, we begin to move with it, flowing with life as it unfolds, accepting each moment as it comes and goes. The quieting of the mind allows us to perceive life not through a lens of desire or resistance, but as it is, ever-changing and impermanent. When we are constantly engaged in the noise of our thoughts and the distractions of external life, we are unable to see clearly. We become caught up in the illusion of permanence, convinced that things will always stay the same, that we can hold on to what we love or avoid what we fear. But silence strips away those illusions. In the stillness, we come to see that every thought, every feeling, every situation is like a wave in the ocean. It rises, peaks, and eventually falls. This awareness of impermanence brings with it a sense of peace, as we realize that no situation, no emotion, no moment is permanent. In Buddhist meditation, silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the space where we experience the impermanence of our thoughts and sensations directly. When we sit in meditation, we observe the constant flow of thoughts, sensations, and feelings that arise and pass away. At first, it can be unsettling to realize how transient everything is. Our mind will often try to cling to a thought, an emotion, or a moment, trying to make it last. But the more we practice stillness, the more we learn to let go, to simply observe as these experiences come and go. This is the heart of Buddhist practice, not to resist impermanence, but to understand it, accept it, and move with it. As we sit in silence, we begin to notice how our thoughts and feelings arise spontaneously, like clouds passing across the sky. One moment, we might feel joy or excitement, and the next moment, that feeling fades, replaced by something else. This process of change happens continuously, often without our conscious awareness. But when we allow the mind to settle into quiet stillness, we become more attuned to this flow. We begin to recognize that the thoughts we identify with are not permanent parts of us. They are simply passing phenomena, like waves on the surface of the ocean. The more we realize this, the less power these fleeting thoughts and feelings hold over us. Silence, in this sense, is the perfect medium through which we can directly experience impermanence. It offers us the space to observe the nature of change, both within and around us. It is in the quiet moments that we begin to notice how everything is constantly shifting, from the sounds of the world around us to the feelings that arise within us. In the absence of distractions, we can clearly see that everything is in constant motion and that trying to hold on to anything is futile. This understanding is liberating because it frees us from the grip of attachment and craving, both of which are the root causes of suffering. In Buddhism, suffering is often described as a result of attachment, our unwillingness to let go of the things, people, and experiences that we want to hold on to. We seek permanence in a world that is anything but permanent. We desire things to stay the same, to remain comfortable, to not change. But when we get caught in this mindset, we only set ourselves up for disappointment. When we hold on to things that are impermanent, we inevitably suffer when they change or leave. Silence allows us to see this truth more clearly, helping us shift our perspective. Instead of resisting the natural flow of change, we begin to accept it, to let go of the need to control or hold on to things. This acceptance of impermanence doesn't mean that we become indifferent or disengaged from life. Quite the opposite, actually. When we stop clinging to the idea of permanence, we become more alive to each moment, more open to experiencing life fully as it is. We no longer take things for granted, and we learn to appreciate the present moment for what it is. Silence gives us the opportunity to feel life more deeply, to see its beauty and its fleeting nature, and to respond to it with compassion, understanding, and grace. In this way, silence offers us the freedom to experience impermanence, not as something to be feared, but as something to be embraced. We understand that change is a natural part of life, and that the beauty of life comes from its ever-changing nature. The quieting of the mind in Buddhist practice helps us cultivate this awareness, allowing us to accept the ebb and flow of our experiences without resistance. Rather than fearing loss or change, we learn to flow with it, to trust in the natural course of things, and to find peace in the realization that everything, both the highs and the lows, is temporary. This deeper awareness of impermanence also helps us develop non-attachment. Attachment arises when we cling to things as though they are permanent, trying to hold on to them out of fear or desire. But when we sit in silence and observe the impermanence of everything around us, we come to understand that there is no need to cling. We can experience joy without fear of losing it, sadness without fearing that it will never end, and success without thinking that it will last forever. In this way, silence not only helps us see the impermanence of things, but also teaches us how to live without attachment, experiencing life fully but without clinging to it. As we continue to deepen our practice, we learn to embrace the impermanence of self. Our sense of self, like everything else, is not fixed. It is constantly changing. Our thoughts, feelings, and identities shift from moment to moment, and when we become quiet enough to observe this, we can see that our identity is not a static thing, but a fluid process. The more we sit in silence, the more we realize that we are not the same person we were yesterday, and we will not be the same person tomorrow. Our true nature, in Buddhist terms, is empty and ever-changing. It is only when we let go of the desire to hold on to a fixed identity that we can experience true freedom. In Buddhist teachings, impermanence is not just a philosophical concept. It is a truth to be experienced. The silence of meditation and mindfulness practice creates the space for us to feel impermanence deeply, to witness it in our thoughts, our emotions, and our lives. It is only through this direct experience that we begin to understand the nature of change, and it is through this understanding that we can begin to live more peacefully. By embracing impermanence, we free ourselves from the constant struggle of trying to control what is inherently uncontrollable, and we open ourselves to a life of greater flow, freedom, and acceptance. In the stillness of silence, we begin to live more in tune with the natural rhythm of life. We accept that everything is constantly changing, and we respond to this change with wisdom and compassion. The quieting of the mind reveals the ever-present nature of impermanence, allowing us to align ourselves with the truth of our existence. This deep realization brings us peace, not through the denial of change, but through the acceptance of it. By embracing impermanence, we let go of the need to hold on, and in that letting go, we find the freedom to live fully, here and now. Having delved into the impermanence of life, we now turn our focus inward once more, but this time the inward journey goes beyond just personal awareness. It expands into the vast, intricate dance of energies that form the very fabric of the universe. As we quiet the mind and open ourselves to the subtle truths of impermanence, we begin to notice something extraordinary. There are sounds beyond the physical realm, energies and vibrations that constantly flow around us, but which are often imperceptible to the distracted mind. Buddhist teachings offer a profound perspective on these unseen and unheard energies, emphasizing how a quiet mind can tune into the subtle currents of the universe, perceiving what cannot be heard by the ordinary senses. In the world around us, there are subtle vibrations and energies that influence everything, yet most of these are beyond the reach of our normal senses. We are often too caught up in the noise of our thoughts and the busyness of our lives to notice the deeper currents that shape our reality. But through Buddhist practice, particularly mindfulness and meditation, we are taught to quiet the mind so that we can access these hidden layers of perception. The true nature of reality, according to Buddhist teachings, isn't just what we see or hear on the surface. It's what lies beneath, in the subtleties that we often miss in our everyday awareness. Buddhist philosophy teaches that the universe is constantly in motion, a symphony of energies interacting and flowing in ways that transcend the physical. The quiet mind becomes a tuning fork for these subtle energies. When we silence the incessant chatter of the mind, we are not simply becoming still. We are allowing ourselves to become attuned to a deeper, more profound level of perception. It's like the difference between hearing noise and truly listening to the rhythm of the natural world, where every movement, every sound, is a reflection of something much larger than ourselves. This deeper perception is not limited to external sounds or physical energies alone. It extends into the inner workings of our own being. When we quiet the mind, we become more attuned to the subtle energies within our own bodies, our own emotions, and our own thoughts. We begin to sense the flow of energy through our own system, the way our emotions affect our physical state, or how the stillness within can bring balance and clarity to the rest of our experience. This attunement is a crucial part of Buddhist practice, as it allows us to connect with both the external world and our inner world in ways that transcend ordinary sensory perception. The idea of subtle perception in Buddhism goes beyond just a theoretical understanding. It is something to be experienced. To understand these subtle energies, we must first quiet the distractions within ourselves. Buddhist teachings often speak of sati, or mindfulness, as the practice that leads us to this kind of awareness. Mindfulness is not merely paying attention to the moment, but being fully present with every sensation, every breath, and every sound. As we sit in meditation, we learn to listen not just to the noises of the world around us, but to the stillness beneath them, a stillness that contains the energy of the universe itself. As we become more attuned to the subtle energies of the world, we also begin to understand that these energies are interconnected. The Buddhist concept of interdependence tells us that nothing exists in isolation. Every thought, every action, every movement is linked to everything else in the universe. The subtle energies we feel in our meditation are not isolated from the world around us. They are part of a larger, interconnected web of existence. In Buddhist terms, this realization is a path to understanding the nature of emptiness. Emptiness, in this context, refers to the fact that nothing has an independent existence. Everything is constantly changing, constantly interacting, and constantly flowing. The universe and everything within it is interconnected by a web of subtle energies that bind everything together. This understanding of subtle perception can radically shift the way we experience the world. Most of us are accustomed to a world defined by physicality, by what we can see, touch, hear, and measure. But through Buddhist teachings, we learn to see the world as a network of energies that cannot be reduced to simple physical matter. This shift in perception opens us to a new way of relating to life, one where we no longer see ourselves as separate from the world, but as part of this vast web of interconnected energy. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions are not isolated events, but are intrinsically linked to the greater flow of the universe. This deeper awareness of the hidden sounds and energies of the universe also brings us closer to wisdom. When we tune into these subtle currents, we begin to see beyond the surface of things. We no longer react to life based on limited or superficial perceptions, but respond with the clarity that comes from understanding the deeper forces at play. We learn to act not from a place of ignorance or impulse, but from a place of knowing, understanding, and compassion. The quiet mind allows us to experience this wisdom firsthand, and it guides our actions in the world. One of the most profound aspects of this awareness is the feeling of interconnectedness that it brings. As we learn to perceive the subtle energies of the universe, we come to realize that everything is deeply connected. Our actions, no matter how small, ripple out into the world, affecting the larger web of existence. When we are more attuned to this reality, our actions become more mindful, more compassionate, and more aligned with the true nature of the universe. In Buddhist practice, this understanding of interconnectedness is a call to live with greater responsibility, greater care, and greater awareness of the impact we have on others. The idea that silence allows us to hear these hidden, subtle energies also extends to our spiritual practice. In Buddhist teachings, silence isn't just a tool for calming the mind or alleviating stress. It's a doorway to a deeper spiritual connection. When we quiet the distractions of the mind, we open ourselves to a more direct experience of the sacred. This is not a mystical experience in the traditional sense, but a direct, unmediated experience of the present moment. The subtle energies we begin to perceive are not separate from the sacred. They are the sacred itself. They are a reflection of the interconnectedness and impermanence of life, reminding us of the profound beauty and mystery that underlies all of existence. The quiet mind, when cultivated properly, allows us to experience the non-duality of existence. We begin to understand that the energies we perceive in our meditation are not separate from us, nor are they separate from the world around us. They are part of the same whole, part of the same interconnected network that defines reality. This experience of non-duality is one of the central tenets of Buddhist philosophy. It teaches us that the distinctions we make between self and other, between subject and object, are illusory. The energies we perceive in silence are not distinct from us, but are part of the same cosmic flow. In the stillness of a quiet mind, we also come to understand the impermanence of all things on a deeper level. Just as the physical world is in a constant state of change, so too are the subtle energies that flow through the universe. When we silence the noise of our thoughts, we can feel the ebb and flow of these energies and we recognize that they too are not fixed or permanent. This awareness of impermanence, combined with our awareness of interdependence, brings us closer to equanimity. We learn to accept the fleeting nature of life and the constant flow of energies without attachment or resistance. This acceptance is not passive. It is an active participation in the flow of life, where we are aligned with the rhythms of the universe rather than fighting against them. As we continue to cultivate this ability to perceive the hidden energies of the universe, we begin to see more clearly. We see through the illusions that keep us trapped in cycles of desire, aversion, and ignorance. We begin to act from a place of deep awareness, free from the distortions of the ego. Our perception of the world shifts, and we move from a narrow, limited view to a broad, expansive one that sees the interconnectedness of all things and the profound beauty in every moment. Ultimately, the ability to perceive the subtle energies that flow through the universe is not something extraordinary or mystical. It is a natural ability that we all possess, but one that is often clouded by the noise of our thoughts, emotions, and distractions. Through silence, we clear away this clutter and reconnect with the deeper, hidden truths of existence. As we do so, we begin to experience the world in a more vivid, more meaningful way, seeing the sacredness in every moment and feeling the connection that unites all things. In this stillness, we find our true selves, and we find our place in the grand, cosmic dance of life. Having explored how silence reveals the hidden energies of the universe, we now turn our focus to the most profound form of wisdom that can be found in stillness, the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha's voice, often heard in the quietest moments, holds the key to understanding the nature of suffering, the path to liberation, and the wisdom that transcends intellectual knowledge. It is in the silence of the mind, in the stillness of the heart, that we are most open to hearing the Buddha's teachings, not as abstract concepts, but as direct experiences of truth. These teachings, when understood deeply, awaken us to the fullness of life, leading us to a place of peace, compassion, and clarity. The Buddha's voice is not a literal sound, but a presence that emerges from the stillness of the mind. Silence, in Buddhist practice, is not simply the absence of external noise, but a mental state in which we can hear the deeper, more profound truths of existence. This is where the Buddha's teachings are most accessible, when the mind is quiet enough to listen. The Buddha's wisdom is timeless and universal, but it is only in the stillness that we can truly hear and internalize its profound messages. In silence, the distractions of the ego fade away, and we begin to hear the teachings of impermanence, suffering, and the path to liberation as they apply to our own lives, not as abstract ideas, but as immediate, lived experiences. One of the key teachings of the Buddha is that suffering arises from attachment to desires, to expectations, to the fleeting nature of life itself. The Buddha's voice speaks to us in these moments of silence, pointing us toward the path of non-attachment. It is in the stillness of the mind that we can begin to see how our attachments shape our experience and perpetuate suffering. When we are constantly chasing after what we think will bring us happiness or trying to avoid discomfort, we are caught in a cycle of craving and aversion. The Buddha's wisdom, however, shows us that true peace lies in letting go of this cycle, in embracing the impermanence of life and in accepting things as they are, rather than as we wish them to be. To hear the Buddha's voice, we must first cultivate the conditions of stillness. This stillness is not merely about quieting external sounds, but about quieting the internal chatter of the mind. Our thoughts, emotions, and desires often drown out the subtle teachings that are available in every moment. By learning to quiet the mind through mindfulness and meditation, we open ourselves to hearing the deeper truths that the Buddha speaks, truths that are always present but often overlooked. In meditation, we sit in silence and observe the flow of our thoughts, allowing them to come and go without attachment. It is in this practice that we begin to understand the impermanent nature of all things, and in this understanding, we begin to hear the wisdom that leads to liberation. The Buddha's teachings are not just intellectual concepts. They are a direct path to inner transformation. When we cultivate silence, we create the space for insight and wisdom to arise spontaneously. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, not to accumulate knowledge, but to embody wisdom in our everyday lives. The Buddha's voice, heard in the quiet moments, teaches us how to live with awareness, how to be present with our emotions, how to embrace suffering without being consumed by it. It is in the stillness of our practice that we learn to live in harmony with the world, seeing things as they truly are and responding with compassion and wisdom. The Buddha's voice also guides us towards the path of mindfulness, where we are fully present in each moment, without judgment or attachment. In the silence, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. We begin to see how our habitual patterns of thinking and reacting create suffering, and how we can break free from these patterns by cultivating mindfulness. The Buddha's wisdom teaches us that it is not the external world that causes our suffering, but our internal reactions to it. When we are mindful, we are able to respond to life with clarity and equanimity, rather than being swept away by the turbulence of our emotions and desires. In the quiet of meditation, we also come to understand the nature of emptiness. The Buddha's teachings on emptiness show us that everything is interconnected and that nothing exists independently. Everything in the universe is in a constant state of flux, and our perception of the world is shaped by our attachments and desires. When we let go of our attachments and allow ourselves to sit in silence, we begin to experience the emptiness of all things. This does not mean that things lack existence or meaning, but that their nature is empty of inherent, fixed qualities. Everything is fluid, interconnected, and constantly changing. By embracing this understanding, we free ourselves from the need to cling to things, and we open ourselves to a life of greater freedom and peace. The Buddha's voice, heard in the silence, also speaks to us about the path of compassion. Silence does not merely teach us to detach from our desires and attachments, but to open our hearts to the suffering of others. Compassion in Buddhist practice is not just an emotional reaction, but a deep understanding of the shared nature of suffering. When we listen to the Buddha's voice in the stillness, we begin to feel the suffering of others as our own. We realize that we are not separate from one another, but part of the same interconnected web of life. This understanding of interdependence leads to a natural outpouring of compassion, as we recognize that by helping others, we also help ourselves. In the quiet moments, we hear the call to act with kindness, to respond with love, and to alleviate the suffering of those around us. The teachings of the Buddha are also teachings of awareness. In the silence, we come to see how unaware we often are of our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. We act on autopilot, driven by habitual patterns of thinking and reacting, without realizing the impact these actions have on our lives and the lives of others. When we quiet the mind, we begin to become more aware of our internal processes. We start to see how our thoughts and emotions shape our experience, and how, by changing our awareness, we can change the way we interact with the world. This is where true transformation happens, not through force or willpower, but through an increase in awareness, which allows us to see clearly and make conscious choices. As we listen to the Buddha's voice in the silence, we come to understand that the path to enlightenment is not a distant goal, but a continuous process of growth and understanding. It is not something that we attain once and for all, but something that we cultivate through practice, day by day, moment by moment. The Buddha's teachings are not about escaping from the world or reaching a state of perfection, but about learning to live fully in the world with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. The quiet moments, when we allow ourselves to listen to the Buddha's voice, become the foundation for this practice. Through silence, we come to understand that enlightenment is not something external, but something that arises from within, as we awaken to the truth of who we are and the interconnectedness of all beings. The Buddha's voice, heard in the quietest moments, speaks not just to our minds, but to our hearts. It is a voice of deep understanding, of compassion, and of wisdom that transcends words and concepts. When we listen in silence, we hear not only the teachings, but the call to embody them in our lives, to live in accordance with the wisdom that has always been available to us. The quiet mind creates the space for these teachings to take root, for the seeds of wisdom to grow, and for us to walk the path of liberation with clarity and confidence. In the silence, we come to realize that the Buddha's voice is not separate from us, but is the very essence of who we are. It is the wisdom within, the deep knowing that guides us toward a life of peace, compassion, and clarity. By cultivating the conditions for silence, we open ourselves to this inner wisdom, allowing it to guide us on the path toward enlightenment. Through stillness, we hear the Buddha's teachings not as distant words, but as living truths that transform us, moment by moment, into the people we are meant to be. Building on the understanding that silence offers the space for profound insights and wisdom, we now explore how that same silence can awaken a deep, compassionate response to the world around us. It is easy to get caught in the noise of life, the constant demands, the fast-paced rush, the distractions that pull us in 1,000 directions. Yet, within that same noise lies a yearning for peace, for understanding, and for connection. Silence, when practiced with awareness, becomes the medium through which compassion is nurtured. In this stillness, we come to hear the compassionate voice within us, a voice that often remains silent in the chaos of the world, but which becomes clear and loud when we give it the space to speak. Compassion is not something that can be forced or manufactured. It doesn't come from trying hard to be kind or pretending to care. True compassion arises naturally when we make space for it, when we quiet the noise of the mind and listen to the suffering that exists both within and outside of us. It is only in moments of stillness that we can connect with the deeper currents of suffering that flow through the world. These currents are not always visible, and they are often unnoticed by the busy mind. But when we create the space to listen, we hear not just the sounds of our own internal struggles, but also the cries of the world that long for healing. In Buddhist practice, silence plays a vital role in the cultivation of compassion. Through mindfulness and meditation, we learn to sit with discomfort, to hold space for suffering without immediately trying to fix it. This is where the power of silence lies, in its ability to offer us a way to deeply connect with the suffering of others without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. Silence allows us to step outside of our own self-centeredness and see the world from the perspective of another. When we are quiet, we stop thinking about what we want, what we need, or how we feel. Instead, we begin to feel the pain and joy of others more clearly. This is the heart of compassionate action, not acting out of obligation or pity, but responding to the world with an open heart, one that has truly heard and understood the needs of others. The stillness of silence also reveals the connection between all beings. In our busy, chaotic lives, it is easy to forget how deeply interconnected we are. We can become so caught up in our own worries and desires that we forget to recognize the shared humanity that binds us together. Silence offers us the space to step outside of ourselves, to pause, and to see that the suffering of another is our suffering, and their joy is our joy. Compassion grows in this understanding as we come to see that we are not separate from one another, but part of the same interconnected web of life. In this realization, silence nurtures the deepest form of empathy, the ability to feel another's pain and respond with kindness and care. But silence doesn't just help us to listen. It also creates the conditions for compassionate action. When the mind is still, we are no longer distracted by our own judgments or assumptions. We are able to observe the world with clarity and without bias. This clarity allows us to respond to situations and people with more awareness, understanding that each person's journey is unique and worthy of respect. Compassionate action comes not from a place of fixing others, but from meeting them where they are, offering support and understanding without judgment. This is what silence allows us to do, to act with clarity and wisdom, without the interference of ego or self-centered desires. In Buddhist teachings, compassion is often described as the bodhisattva vow, the decision to work for the welfare of all beings, not just for our own enlightenment. It is a vow to act for the benefit of others, to alleviate suffering wherever we find it, and to work toward the collective awakening of all beings. Silence is the foundation of this vow because it helps us connect with the suffering of others without losing ourselves in it. The stillness of the mind allows us to hold space for others, to offer them our presence without judgment, without the need to fix or change their situation. We simply sit with them, offering the gift of compassion through our being. One of the key aspects of silence as a path to compassionate action is non-judgment. When the mind is noisy, we often respond to the world through the lens of our own judgments and biases. We categorize people and situations quickly, deciding who is worthy of our compassion and who is not. But silence, and the stillness that comes with it, frees us from these judgments. It helps us to see beyond labels and assumptions, to recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every being. In this state of awareness, we act not based on what someone deserves, but on the simple recognition that all beings suffer and all beings deserve compassion. In this way, silence removes the barriers we erect between ourselves and others, allowing us to engage with the world in a way that is more open, more accepting, and more loving. Compassion also grows through the practice of patience. Silence teaches us to be patient, not just with others, but with ourselves. In the fast-paced world we live in, we often want to rush through our challenges, fix our problems, or help others in ways that might not truly be helpful. But in silence, we learn that real compassion is about being with things as they are, without rushing or forcing change. It is about sitting with suffering, whether our own or that of others, and allowing space for transformation. This patience is not passive. It is active in its presence, in its willingness to remain with what is, knowing that healing and growth take time. The stillness that comes from silence teaches us to trust in the natural unfolding of life, allowing the seeds of compassion to grow without interference. In silence, we also learn to practice self-compassion, which is an essential part of being able to extend compassion to others. When we are quiet, we can more deeply recognize our own suffering and the ways in which we tend to ignore or dismiss our own needs. Self-compassion is not about indulging ourselves or avoiding discomfort, but about meeting ourselves with kindness and understanding, especially in times of difficulty. When we cultivate self-compassion, we are better able to care for others. We realize that we cannot pour from an empty cup, and that our ability to offer true compassion is rooted in the love and care we give ourselves. Silence, in this sense, nurtures compassion by helping us to first recognize and honor our own humanity, so that we can extend that same kindness and understanding to others. Furthermore, silence allows us to connect with the deeper layers of wisdom that guide compassionate action. Compassionate action does not always come from knowing exactly what to do, but from being attuned to the moment and acting from a place of wisdom that transcends the limitations of the intellect. Wisdom in Buddhism is not just knowledge or understanding. It is the ability to see clearly and act skillfully in the world. When we quiet the mind, we make space for this wisdom to arise. We become more in tune with what is truly needed in each moment and can respond in a way that is both kind and effective. Silence helps us to clear away the distractions and noise that prevent us from hearing the guidance of wisdom, allowing us to respond to the world in a way that is aligned with our highest understanding. True compassionate action is not about performing grand gestures, but about being present with others in their suffering, being willing to offer our time, energy, and care without expectation. Silence nurtures this kind of compassion because it helps us to move beyond the need for recognition or reward. When we act from the quiet place within, we are not seeking approval or validation. We are simply responding to the needs of others with the love and presence that arises naturally from within. This kind of compassionate action brings us closer to the essence of Buddhist practice: to live for the benefit of all beings, to alleviate suffering wherever we find it, and to cultivate a heart that is open and generous. Ultimately, silence becomes the path through which we cultivate right action, one of the key aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right action, in Buddhist teachings, is not about following rigid rules or seeking perfection, but about acting from a place of clarity, compassion, and wisdom. When the mind is quiet, we are better able to align our actions with our deeper values and principles, We can act with mindfulness and intention rather than reacting out of habit or emotional reactivity. This alignment allows us to move through the world with more grace, more clarity, and more love, and to engage in compassionate action that benefits both ourselves and others. Through silence, we open ourselves to the compassionate voice within, a voice that speaks softly but powerfully, guiding us towards right action and true connection. In the stillness, we find the clarity to act with compassion, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to know when to step in and when to simply be present. Silence nurtures this compassionate action by helping us to listen, to understand, and to respond from a place of love and awareness. In this way, silence is not just a passive absence of sound, but an active, transformative force that guides us toward a life of greater empathy, understanding, and service to others. As we've explored, silence is not just a pause in the noise, but a deep and transformative state that can awaken compassion and guide us toward the right action. But silence offers something even deeper. It's a state where we can empty ourselves of all the distractions, all the clutter, all the noise that fills our minds and hearts. When we do this, we create space for wisdom to flow through. This is the heart of Buddhist practice, becoming a vessel for wisdom. Wisdom isn't something that can be learned from external sources alone. True wisdom comes when we quiet the distractions, let go of our attachments, and allow our deepest knowing to arise naturally. Silence, then, is not merely about the absence of sound. It's the presence of something greater, clarity, understanding, and the capacity to respond to life with profound insight. The quiet mind is a space where wisdom isn't forced or manufactured, but allowed to arise. In the constant noise of our thoughts and emotions, wisdom remains hidden, trapped beneath the layers of our desires, judgments, and worries. When we create silence, we open ourselves to receiving wisdom, allowing it to flow through us without interference. This kind of wisdom doesn't come from books or teachings alone. It comes from the direct experience of life, from being present with each moment without the distortion of our usual mental patterns. Deep silence is where that wisdom can settle in, not as a fleeting thought or a passing idea, but as a deep knowing that changes how we relate to ourselves, others, and the world. In Buddhism, the idea of becoming a vessel for wisdom is central to the path of awakening. The Buddha's teachings point to the fact that the more we try to grasp at knowledge, the further we distance ourselves from true understanding. We are often trapped in a cycle of seeking and accumulating, thinking that wisdom is something to possess. But the deeper truth is that wisdom is already within us. It's not something we need to chase or acquire, but something we need to make space for. When we still the mind, we stop the constant searching and allow the wisdom of the present moment to reveal itself. It's in this stillness that we come to realize that everything we need to know is already inside us, just waiting to be recognized. This process of emptying ourselves to become a vessel for wisdom requires deep practice and patience. Our minds are constantly filled with thoughts, worries, and distractions. These are not inherently bad, but they prevent us from accessing the deeper layers of truth. When we sit in silence, we create an opportunity to observe these thoughts and let them pass without attaching to them. Each time we do this, we make space for something greater. The more we practice this emptiness, the more we learn to let go of the need to control our thoughts, our emotions, and our circumstances. We begin to understand that true wisdom arises not when we force it, but when we stop trying to hold on to everything that clutters our experience. At its core, silence is the ultimate tool for letting go. The more we clear away the mental distractions, the more we create space for wisdom to enter. This is not a passive process, but an active one. It requires us to let go of old patterns, beliefs, and assumptions that no longer serve us. This might feel uncomfortable at first, as we are so accustomed to being in control, to holding on to what we think we know. But in Buddhist practice, letting go is the key to transformation. The more we let go, the more we allow wisdom to flow freely. Silence, in this sense, is not just about quieting the mind, but about clearing the clutter that keeps us from seeing clearly. As we continue to practice silence, we begin to notice subtle shifts. Wisdom begins to emerge, not as grand epiphanies or sudden insights, but as small, quiet revelations. We start to see the connections between things that we didn't notice before. We become more attuned to the ebb and flow of life, more present with our own emotions, and more aware of the needs of others. This is the wisdom of the present moment. A wisdom that comes from living fully in the here and now without being pulled into the past or future. Silence clears the path for us to experience life as it is, without the distortions of our judgments and desires. To become a vessel for wisdom also means embracing non-attachment. When we are attached to our thoughts, to our identities, to our expectations, we block the flow of wisdom. Attachment keeps us tethered to fixed ideas of how things should be, preventing us from seeing things as they truly are. In the silence, we learn to release these attachments, to let go of the need to control the outcome of every situation. This does not mean we stop caring or stop acting, but it means we act from a place of clarity without being attached to the results. Wisdom arises when we let go of our attachment to specific outcomes and open ourselves to what is unfolding. A critical aspect of becoming a vessel for wisdom is the ability to listen deeply. The stillness we cultivate in our practice isn't just about sitting in silence, but about listening to the deeper layers of our own experience and to the world around us. When we listen deeply, we hear not just the surface-level sounds, but the subtle energies that guide our actions. This is where true wisdom lives, in the quiet spaces where we can truly hear what is happening inside and outside of us. The more we practice deep listening, the more we tune in to the subtle messages that life is constantly offering us. It's in these moments of deep listening that we gain the insight we need to respond skillfully to life. Deep silence also allows us to reconnect with our intuition. We often rely on our intellect to guide us, but intellect alone cannot lead us to true wisdom. Intuition, however, speaks to us from a deeper, more primal place. It's the quiet voice inside that knows what is true, even when the mind is uncertain. Silence creates the space for this intuitive wisdom to surface. The more we empty our minds, the more we allow our intuition to guide us. This intuitive wisdom is not about intellectual understanding, but about a direct, experiential knowing. It's a wisdom that doesn't need to be explained or justified because it comes from a place of deep, embodied truth. As we make space for wisdom in the quiet moments, we begin to realize that this wisdom is not just for us. It is meant to be shared with others. A vessel that is filled with wisdom does not keep it for itself. It overflows, offering what it has received to the world. This wisdom, once received and understood, naturally flows into compassionate action. The wisdom we cultivate in silence informs the way we interact with others, the way we offer support, and the way we show up in the world. When we empty ourselves and create space for wisdom to flow, we become more attuned to the needs of others. Our actions are no longer driven by ego or desire, but by a deep, compassionate understanding of what is needed in each moment. Becoming a vessel for wisdom also means letting go of the need for certainty. The mind often craves certainty, holding tightly to beliefs and ideas as a way to feel secure. But wisdom arises in the uncertainty, in the not knowing. Silence helps us embrace this uncertainty, allowing us to remain open to what arises in each moment. It's in this openness that wisdom flows most freely, without the limitations of fixed ideas or preconceptions. By letting go of the need to have all the answers, we create space for wisdom to flow through us in ways we might not expect. In Buddhist practice, silence is also a way to connect with emptiness, not as a void, but as a space of infinite potential. The more we empty ourselves of distractions, attachments, and preconceived notions, the more we realize that we are not separate from the wisdom of the universe. We are part of it. The wisdom that we seek is already present within us, and silence is the key to unlocking it. When we empty ourselves, we become one with the flow of life, open to the wisdom that arises in each moment. This wisdom isn't something we possess. It is something we align with, something that flows through us as we remain open and receptive. In conclusion, silence is not just an absence. It is the presence of clarity, wisdom, and insight. When we create the conditions for stillness, we empty ourselves of distractions and open ourselves to the wisdom that resides within. This wisdom is not something we need to search for or acquire, but something that flows naturally when we make space for it. Becoming a vessel for wisdom is not about force or effort, but about surrendering to the quiet, allowing wisdom to arise freely and letting it guide us in our actions. Through deep silence, we reconnect with the deepest truths of existence, and in this stillness, we find the clarity we need to live a life of peace, understanding, and compassion. As we've delved into the deep silence that enables wisdom to flow, it becomes clear that silence doesn't just exist in the quiet moments of meditation or reflection. It permeates our lives, often found in the gaps between actions, between words, and between the constant rush of daily events. These moments of stillness are not empty or insignificant. Rather, they are where the true depth of life unfolds. In the busy pace of our lives, we often overlook these quiet pauses, yet they are the spaces where meaning can be found. The moments where we connect to something larger than ourselves. When we pay attention to the silence between life's events, we begin to see the subtle threads that tie everything together, offering us a deeper understanding of the meaning behind our actions and experiences. The gaps between life's events are often the places where we find clarity, especially when we are able to pause and reflect on what has just happened or what is about to come. These moments of stillness allow us to let go of the constant doing and come back to being. They are not moments of idle nothingness, but rather opportunities to connect with the deeper currents of life. When we rush from one task to the next, we miss out on the potential these moments offer. But when we learn to pause, we begin to see that in these silences, life reveals its true essence, not through the constant flow of activity, but in the space between it all. In Buddhist teachings, this concept of pause and reflection is a key aspect of mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just about focusing on the present moment, but also about creating the awareness to recognize and appreciate the spaces between those moments. It is in the stillness between breaths, between thoughts, and between actions that we can experience the true depth of our lives. The act of pausing allows us to reconnect with the present moment in a way that simple, continuous activity cannot. We are not just rushing through life, but taking the time to understand what is happening, both within us and around us. The space between life's events also invites us to recognize the impermanence of all things. In the silence between actions, we can see how everything is in a constant state of flux. Life doesn't unfold in a linear, predictable way. It ebbs and flows, pauses, and accelerates. These moments of stillness offer us the chance to reflect on the impermanence of each experience, to see that each moment is fleeting, and each action, though significant, is part of a larger, unfolding narrative. It is in this awareness of impermanence that we can find peace, knowing that everything, both the good and the challenging, is temporary. This understanding frees us from the need to hold on to moments, allowing us to fully experience them and then let them go. Furthermore, the silence between life's events is where we can reconnect with our true selves. In the rush of daily life, it's easy to become disconnected from who we really are. We become defined by our roles, our achievements, and our failures. But in the pauses, we find ourselves again, free from the labels and expectations we place on ourselves. These moments offer a chance to check in with our inner world, to see if we are living in alignment with our values, and to recalibrate if needed. It's in these silent spaces that we remember what truly matters, not in the grand gestures or accomplishments, but in the quiet moments of being present with ourselves. By reflecting on the moments between events, we also deepen our connection to the world around us. In the stillness, we are reminded that we are not isolated in our experiences. Every action, every pause, every word we speak ripples out into the world, affecting others and the environment. These moments of stillness help us become more attuned to our interconnectedness, allowing us to move through life with greater awareness and compassion. It is often in the quiet moments that we understand the impact of our actions, both on ourselves and on those we interact with. In Buddhist practice, the concept of interbeing is a central theme, the understanding that all things are interconnected and nothing exists in isolation. The moments of stillness between actions help us embody this understanding. As we pause and reflect on our experiences, we begin to see how everything is part of a greater whole. Our lives, our thoughts, our actions are not separate from the world, but are part of the unfolding tapestry of existence. The silence between life's events allows us to step back and recognize this interconnectedness, creating a deeper sense of empathy and understanding. These moments of quiet between events are also essential in cultivating gratitude. In the rush of daily life, it's easy to overlook the many blessings we experience, but in the stillness, we are given the opportunity to pause and reflect on what we have. It's in these moments of quiet reflection that we realize how much we've been given. the relationships, the experiences, the lessons, and the simple joys that often go unnoticed. Silence opens our hearts to gratitude, helping us appreciate life for what it is, rather than constantly striving for something more. The gaps between life's events also allow us to see the deeper meaning of our actions. When we move through life without pausing to reflect, we often miss the larger significance of what we are doing. It's only in the quiet moments of pause that we can step back and see how our actions are part of a greater story, how they connect to our purpose, our values, and our larger journey. This reflection helps us understand that every action, no matter how small, has meaning. The silence between these actions is where we find the significance in even the most mundane parts of life. Additionally, the silence between events helps us develop patience. In a world that constantly demands action, where results are expected quickly, silence teaches us the value of waiting. Patience is not about passively waiting for something to happen, but about actively engaging in the present moment without rushing ahead. In the silence, we learn to trust the unfolding of life, understanding that some things take time to develop. We come to see that the pauses are not wasted time, but necessary parts of the process. It is in these moments of waiting that we learn to allow life to unfold at its own pace, rather than forcing things to happen before their time. This silence also gives us the opportunity to practice self-compassion. As we move through life, we can be hard on ourselves when things don't go as planned or when we don't meet our own expectations. The silence between life's events gives us a chance to reflect on these feelings without judgment. In these quiet moments, we can embrace ourselves as we are, imperfect, human, and doing the best we can. We can offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend, allowing us to move through life with more grace and less self-criticism. The stillness between events also offers a chance for spiritual connection. Whether through meditation, prayer, or simple reflection, these quiet moments provide the space to reconnect with our spiritual practice, whatever that may be. In these pauses, we can align ourselves with our higher purpose and reconnect with our inner source of guidance. Silence, in this context, is not about removing ourselves from the world, but about reconnecting to something greater than ourselves, something that gives our lives deeper meaning. As we reflect on the silence between life's events, we come to see that these moments are not just empty spaces. They are filled with potential for growth, understanding, connection, and transformation. By learning to sit with these silences, we open ourselves to the deeper currents of life, allowing us to experience the unfolding of our journey with more awareness and purpose. Silence becomes the canvas on which we can paint the full picture of our lives, seeing the connections between actions, experiences, and moments of stillness, all of which contribute to the greater meaning of life's unfolding. Through this quiet reflection, we find the wisdom and clarity that guide us toward a more authentic and compassionate existence. As we have seen, the pauses between life's events hold a unique opportunity to reflect, reconnect, and find meaning in the space between our actions. But there is an even deeper layer of understanding that silence offers: the unspoken truths about the nature of reality. These truths are not found through words or intellectual reasoning, but in the stillness, where the mind is free from distractions and noise. It is in this quiet space that we begin to access the deeper dimensions of existence, where insights arise naturally, unclouded by the mental chatter that usually dominates our awareness. Silence reveals these truths to us, truths about ourselves, the world, and the nature of life itself, truths that can only be fully understood when we allow our minds to rest in stillness. In Buddhist practice, silence is not merely the absence of noise, but a profound condition where deeper wisdom can be heard. The unspoken truths are not things that can be articulated or captured by language. They are subtle, often elusive insights into the nature of impermanence, suffering, and the interconnectedness of all things. These truths exist beyond the limits of intellectual understanding, and it is only in the space of silence that we can begin to experience them directly. The mind, when still, becomes receptive to these truths. It becomes a vessel, empty and open, ready to receive the wisdom that flows from the depths of reality. One of the most significant unspoken truths revealed in silence is the reality of impermanence. In the quiet of meditation or mindful reflection, we begin to experience the fleeting nature of our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. We realize that everything in our lives, from our desires to our fears, from the people we meet to the situations we face, is constantly changing. In silence, we are able to feel the truth of this impermanence in a way that no amount of logical thinking can offer. It is not just an intellectual concept, but a lived experience. We understand on a deeper level that nothing remains the same, and this awareness frees us from the attachment that causes so much suffering. The unspoken truth of impermanence is not just a reminder of the transient nature of life, it is a key that unlocks the door to peace and freedom. Silence also reveals the interconnectedness of all things, a truth that is often hidden by our busy, individualistic minds. When we quiet ourselves, we start to feel the web of life in a more tangible way. We begin to sense how our thoughts, actions, and emotions ripple out, affecting those around us in ways we cannot always see. This understanding of interconnection is not just a theoretical idea, but a direct experience. In the stillness, we can feel how deeply we are linked to the world and to each other. This connection is not just a spiritual concept, it is a profound reality that shapes everything we do. When we realize this, we are more likely to act with compassion, knowing that our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings. Another unspoken truth revealed through silence is the emptiness of all things. Emptiness, in Buddhist teachings, does not mean that things lack existence or value. It means that nothing has an inherent, independent existence. Everything is interdependent, constantly changing, and shaped by the conditions around it. Silence allows us to experience this emptiness directly, without the need for complex explanations or beliefs. We can sense that the world we see is not as fixed as it appears. Our identities, our possessions, and our experiences are all temporary, arising due to various conditions and disappearing when those conditions change. This realization can be unsettling at first, but it is also liberating. When we understand the emptiness of things, we let go of our attachments and the need to control or hold on to anything. We can appreciate life for what it is, without clinging to it or trying to make it permanent. In the stillness, we also become more attuned to the nature of suffering. Suffering in Buddhism is not something that only happens in extreme circumstances. It is an inherent part of the human experience, arising from our desires, attachments, and our resistance to change. When the mind is quiet, we can directly experience the nature of suffering in our lives. We see how our cravings and aversions create mental and emotional pain, and how our attachment to things, whether it's relationships, achievements, or possessions, causes us to suffer when they inevitably change or fade. The unspoken truth of suffering becomes clear when we step back from our usual patterns of thinking and allow ourselves to sit with the discomfort that comes with acknowledging it. Rather than avoiding or denying suffering, we begin to face it with acceptance and understanding. In this acceptance, we find the freedom to let go of our attachments and to live more peacefully. Another important truth revealed through silence is the power of the present moment. Our minds are often focused on the past or the future, but in silence, we are reminded that the present moment is the only place where life truly unfolds. The past is gone, and the future is uncertain. It is in the here and now that we can experience life in its fullness. Silence brings us back to this present moment, allowing us to be fully engaged with what is happening around us and within us. In this space, we find clarity. We stop worrying about what has happened or what might happen, and we simply experience the moment for what it is. In this moment, we discover that everything we need is already here. The peace we seek, the wisdom we desire, and the connection we long for are all available in the present. Silence also reveals the truth of our inner nature. In the quiet moments, we come to realize that our true nature is not defined by our thoughts, emotions, or external circumstances. We are not our thoughts, and we are not our experiences. Our true nature is deeper than the mental and emotional patterns that arise within us. This inner nature is often described as pure awareness, free from judgment, attachment, or fear. When we quiet the mind, we reconnect with this awareness. We stop identifying with the fluctuating thoughts and emotions that usually define us, and we experience ourselves as the awareness that observes these thoughts. This awareness is constant and unchanging, and it is the essence of who we truly are. The unspoken truths revealed in silence also point us toward the path of liberation. In Buddhist teachings, liberation does not come from accumulating knowledge or achievements, but from letting go of our attachments and realizing the truth of our own nature. Silence helps us recognize the limitations of the ego, that sense of self that clings to identity and control. When we quiet the mind, we begin to see how the ego is constantly reinforcing itself through desire, fear, and attachment. But in the stillness, we can let go of this false sense of self and experience the freedom that comes from being connected to the larger flow of life. Liberation is not something we achieve through external actions, but through inner realization. The unspoken truth of liberation is that it is already within us, waiting to be uncovered when we let go of the illusions we cling to. Finally, the silence between our thoughts offers a profound opportunity for insight. When we stop the constant chatter in our minds, we open ourselves to new ways of seeing and understanding the world. Insights arise in these moments of stillness, not as new pieces of information, but as realizations that we already knew deep down. The insights that come through silence are not intellectual. They are experiential, felt in the core of our being. These insights allow us to see through the surface-level appearance of things and perceive the underlying truths that shape our experience. In this way, silence serves as a powerful tool for awakening, the process of seeing things as they truly are, beyond the layers of perception that our minds impose on the world. In conclusion, silence holds the key to unlocking the unspoken truths of our existence. It is in these quiet moments that we begin to see the nature of impermanence, the interconnectedness of all things, the emptiness of our attachments, and the inherent suffering that arises from our desires. Silence reveals the power of the present moment, the truth of our inner nature, and the path to liberation. When we make space for silence, we make space for wisdom. The unspoken truths of life, once hidden beneath the noise of our thoughts and distractions, come to the surface, offering us a deeper understanding of reality. Through silence, we are able to connect with the essence of life and experience the world in its fullest, most authentic form. As we've seen, silence is not simply the absence of sound, but a space where deeper truths of existence reveal themselves. It's where the mind finds clarity, where compassion arises, and where the essence of life unfolds. Yet, silence also holds something more profound. It provides the environment in which we can hear the sound of the self, the true resonance of who we are. In Buddhist teachings, there is a concept that goes beyond the conventional understanding of sound, a sound that transcends physical vibrations and reaches into the very essence of our being. This sound is not something we hear with our ears, but something we perceive through stillness, the true nature of ourselves. It is through deep quiet and mindfulness that we can begin to recognize this subtle vibration, a profound understanding of our own being, free from the external layers of identity, desire, and attachment. Buddhism teaches that the mind, when free from distraction, can begin to tune into a deeper frequency, the essence of life itself. This frequency is not something external, but a deep connection to our inner self, to the energy that flows through us, and to the universe that surrounds us. When we quiet the noise of our minds and strip away the external layers that we have built around our identity, we begin to experience the invisible sound of being, a subtle yet powerful recognition of who we truly are. This sound is not a literal noise, but a resonance that points to the very heart of our existence. In Buddhist meditation, one of the central practices is the cultivation of mindfulness. Being fully aware of the present moment, letting go of attachments to past and future, and simply observing the flow of thoughts and sensations. As we deepen our mindfulness practice, we start to sense that there is something beyond the thoughts, beyond the emotions, beyond the constantly shifting experience of life. In the space of stillness, we begin to touch the sound of our true nature, the essence of who we are before all the conditioning and labels we place upon ourselves. It is here, in this silent space, that we come into direct contact with the fundamental truth of our being, a truth that has always been there, waiting for us to listen. This sound of being is tied to the Buddha nature, the inherent potential for enlightenment that exists within all beings. The Buddha nature is not something we acquire or achieve, but something we uncover by clearing the mental and emotional clutter that obscures it. In the stillness of our minds, we can begin to hear the quiet hum of this inherent nature, a resonance that speaks to our true capacity for wisdom, compassion, and freedom. When we quiet the distractions of the world, we begin to hear the voice of the Buddha, not outside of us, but within. This voice is not a separate entity, but an expression of our deepest self, always available to guide us toward awakening. The sound of the self is often described in Buddhist teachings as the voice of silence, a voice that is heard only when we are fully present, when we drop all the identities and roles we play in our daily lives. In this space, we hear not only our own inner wisdom, but we also feel deeply connected to the vast, interconnected web of life. The sound of being is the recognition that we are not separate from the world around us. It is the realization that our true nature is not bound by individual identity, but is part of the whole. This recognition allows us to act with greater clarity, understanding, and compassion. When we hear the sound of our own being, we recognize that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. In the quiet of meditation, the stillness becomes a tool for inner exploration. It is in this space that we come to understand the Buddhist concept of emptiness. Emptiness is often misunderstood as nothingness, but in truth, it is the absence of inherent, unchanging essence in all things. In silence, we begin to experience this emptiness not as a void, but as a dynamic and expansive potential. The sound of our being is not a fixed identity or a rigid concept of self, but a fluid and ever-changing expression of life's energy. This realization helps us move beyond the attachment to the fixed self and into a deeper understanding of who we are at the core. We are not the sum of our thoughts, experiences, or labels. We are the presence behind them, the observer, the awareness, the sound of being itself. The sound of being also points to the interconnectedness of all things. As we sit in stillness and turn inward, we begin to perceive that our true nature is not separate from others or from the world. In fact, the sound of our being is a reflection of the same energy that flows through everything. The more we listen to this subtle resonance, the more we understand that everything in the universe is interconnected. The sound of being is a vibration that connects us to others, to nature, and to the universe at large. It is a recognition that our individual existence is not separate from the collective experience of all beings. This insight brings a deep sense of peace and unity as we begin to see ourselves not as isolated entities, but as integral parts of the whole. When we are able to access this deep stillness and hear the sound of our true nature, we begin to see beyond the superficial distinctions that we normally make between self and other, between good and bad, between me and you. The mind in silence sees through the illusions of separation and recognizes the oneness of all existence. This realization is the foundation of compassion. When we understand that we are not separate from others, that the same energy flows through all beings, we naturally act with kindness and empathy. The sound of our own being is the same sound that resonates in the hearts of all beings, and in hearing it, we are moved to help, to heal, and to support others on their journey. The silence that reveals the sound of being also leads us to understand the nature of wisdom. Wisdom, in Buddhism, is not just about intellectual understanding. It is a deeper, experiential knowing that comes from direct perception. When we quiet the mind, we no longer rely on conceptual knowledge or external sources to tell us what is true. We experience the truth directly. This kind of wisdom is spontaneous and intuitive. It arises naturally when we are free from the distractions and attachments that cloud our perception. In the silence, we become more attuned to the subtle messages that arise from within, the wisdom that is always present but often overlooked in the noise of our thoughts and desires. The sound of being is also closely linked to awareness. Awareness is the foundation of mindfulness practice, and it is through awareness that we come into direct contact with the present moment. The more we cultivate awareness in stillness, the more we learn to listen to the subtle shifts in our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. This awareness helps us see beyond the surface of things and into their true nature. We begin to understand that everything is in a state of constant flux, that our thoughts and emotions are not fixed, and that our sense of self is not as solid as it appears. In the sound of being, we come to recognize that our true nature is the awareness itself, the presence that observes without judgment, without attachment, and without fear. In Buddhist practice, becoming deeply attuned to the sound of being is a path to liberation. Liberation is not about escaping from the world or transcending our humanity. It is about realizing the truth of our own nature and living in alignment with that truth. When we hear the sound of our own being, we come to understand that we are already free. The chains of attachment, desire, and illusion dissolve in the presence of this awareness, and we are able to live with greater clarity, peace, and compassion. Silence, in this context, becomes the key to unlocking our true potential, revealing the wisdom and clarity that have always been present within us. As we continue to explore the sound of being, we begin to understand that this sound is not something that is separate from us, but is the essence of who we are. It is the truth that underlies all of our experiences, the wisdom that guides us, and the compassion that connects us to all beings. The more we listen to this sound, the more we are able to live in alignment with our true nature. In this alignment, we find peace, freedom, and the ability to act with wisdom and compassion in every moment. In conclusion, the sound of being is not a physical sound, but a subtle resonance that reveals the true nature of who we are. It is through silence that we come into direct contact with this sound, and through this contact, we experience a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world, and our interconnectedness with all beings. This sound is the voice of our true nature, and when we listen closely, we are led toward a life of wisdom, compassion, and liberation. Silence, then, is not just an absence, but a presence that reveals the deeper truths of our existence and guides us toward living fully in harmony with our true nature. In our exploration of the sound of being, we touched upon the deep connection that silence fosters between us and the essence of our true nature. This connection, rooted in stillness, helps us see beyond the surface to experience life and reality in a profound way. But there is another vital aspect of silence that goes beyond understanding. It is the tool that allows us to let go. The act of surrender, of relinquishing the need for control, is one of the most powerful lessons in Buddhist teachings. Silence, in this sense, is not merely about stillness, but about the space it creates for us to step back and allow life to unfold naturally, without the constant effort to shape or dictate outcomes. We live in a world where control seems to be synonymous with safety, success, and stability. Yet, the more we attempt to control, the more we often find ourselves trapped in cycles of frustration, resistance, and stress. Our minds become so occupied with the desire to influence every situation, to hold on to things that are fleeting, that we lose sight of the natural flow of life. Silence, however, offers us the opportunity to release that grasp, to stop fighting against the currents of life and to simply be. Through the quieting of the mind, we learn to surrender, not as a form of giving up, but as a way to align ourselves with the rhythm of existence. Buddhist teachings are clear that control is an illusion, one that brings more suffering than peace. The more we try to control our lives, our experiences, and the people around us, the more we reinforce the ego, the part of us that believes it is separate and must assert its dominance. Silence, through meditation and mindfulness, allows us to dissolve that need for control. When the mind is quiet, we see the futility of clinging to things that are beyond our control. We realize that our attachment to certainty, outcomes, and expectations only leads to dissatisfaction. In that realization, we find the freedom to surrender, to let go of the burden of trying to control what we cannot. Surrendering control is not about being passive or inactive. It is the opposite. It's about releasing our attachment to outcomes while staying present and engaged with life. It's about trusting in the process of life, knowing that things will unfold as they are meant to, even if we cannot predict or dictate how they will unfold. Silence allows us to sit with the discomfort that comes from not knowing, from not having all the answers. It creates the space for us to accept that we don't have to control everything to make it right. We simply need to be present and allow the natural flow of life to guide us. In Buddhist practice, this is closely tied to the concept of non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean indifference or detachment from life. On the contrary, it means engaging with life fully, without the need to control or possess. When we let go of our need to control, we create the space to experience life more deeply and authentically. The act of surrender is not about withdrawing or escaping, but about accepting and engaging with life as it is. In silence, we recognize that control is rooted in fear. The fear of uncertainty, the fear of change, and the fear of not having things go our way. Silence helps us move through these fears, not by suppressing them, but by acknowledging them and letting them pass, allowing us to move forward with grace. As we learn to quiet the mind, we also begin to see how our constant striving for control prevents us from being open to the unexpected. The beauty of life often arises from the moments we cannot predict, the surprises, the detours, and the changes. Silence nurtures this openness, helping us trust in the unknown. In Buddhist terms, this trust is closely connected to the practice of letting go of self-will, the desire to shape the world according to our limited understanding. In letting go, we release the grip of the ego, the part of us that believes it knows what's best. Through silence, we allow ourselves to flow with life, to trust that things will work out in their own time and way. Silence as a tool for surrender also speaks to the acceptance of impermanence. We cannot control the inevitable cycles of change. Life is constantly shifting, and the more we try to control it, the more we suffer. In silence, we experience firsthand the impermanence of all things, our thoughts, our emotions, and our circumstances. When we accept impermanence, we naturally let go of the desire to control. We see that everything is in constant flux, and in that realization, we surrender the need for permanence and certainty. This acceptance of change is a liberating experience. It frees us from the anxiety and fear that comes with the illusion of control. Instead of holding on tightly to the past or trying to predict the future, we embrace the present moment, knowing that it too will change. The quieting of the mind allows us to move into a state of equanimity, where we are no longer disturbed by the fluctuations of life. Equanimity is the ability to remain balanced and calm, regardless of external circumstances. This balance comes from surrendering control and trusting in the natural flow of life. When we are attached to outcomes, we are constantly at the mercy of external forces. But when we let go, we create an inner peace that is not dependent on what happens around us. Silence helps us cultivate this peace by teaching us to release the need for control and embrace the flow of life with an open heart. Surrendering control also helps us connect with compassion, both for ourselves and for others. When we are no longer focused on controlling or fixing situations, we are more available to others. We stop seeing ourselves as separate from those around us, and instead, we begin to feel deeply connected. In silence, we become more attuned to the needs of others, responding not from a place of judgment or expectation, but from a place of deep understanding and compassion. This shift in perspective allows us to act with greater kindness and wisdom, knowing that we are not in control, but simply participants in the unfolding of life. By surrendering control, we open ourselves to the possibility of acting with a more compassionate heart. In Buddhist teachings, surrendering control also means surrendering the idea of a permanent self. The self we often try to control, the identity we cling to, is also impermanent. The more we try to control our self-image, our thoughts and our experiences, the more we reinforce a false sense of self. Silence, through mindfulness and meditation, reveals that the self is fluid, constantly changing, and interconnected with everything around us. When we surrender the need to control this self, we move closer to understanding our true nature, a nature that is not separate, not fixed, but part of the larger whole. In this surrender, we find the freedom to simply be, without the pressure to conform to a rigid idea of who we should be. The process of surrender is not always easy. Our minds naturally resist letting go, especially when we feel threatened by uncertainty or change. But silence helps us develop the courage to face the unknown. It teaches us that surrender is not about giving up or being passive, but about embracing life fully without attachment or expectation. When we allow ourselves to sit in silence, we begin to see that life's unpredictability is not something to fear, but something to welcome. Each moment, as it unfolds, is an opportunity to trust, to let go, and to experience life as it is. Surrendering control is also about embracing vulnerability. Control often stems from the desire to protect ourselves from pain, from failure, and from uncertainty. But when we release this need for control, we also open ourselves to vulnerability. In silence, we allow ourselves to feel what we've been avoiding, the discomfort, the sadness, the fear. We don't resist these feelings, but sit with them, knowing that they, too, are impermanent. By embracing our vulnerability, we become more authentic, more present, and more compassionate. We stop hiding behind the walls of control and let life move through us. Silence as a tool for surrender also encourages patience. When we are constantly trying to control or change things, we lack the patience to allow things to unfold in their own time. In silence, we learn to wait. We sit with discomfort, not rushing to change it, but accepting it as part of the process. Patience allows us to trust the unfolding of life, knowing that everything will happen in its own time. Silence helps us cultivate this patience by creating the space to just be, without rushing, without pushing, and without forcing. In summary, silence is the tool that allows us to surrender, to release the need for control, to let go of attachments, and to trust in the natural flow of life. Through silence, we create the space for peace, wisdom, and compassion to arise. As we quiet the mind and allow ourselves to be present in the moment, we begin to realize that control is an illusion and surrender is the path to freedom. By embracing silence, we move closer to a life of balance, acceptance, and deep connection with ourselves and the world around us. Building on the idea of surrendering control and cultivating silence, we now turn our attention to one of the most profound ways in which stillness shapes our interaction with the world, through right speech. In Buddhist teachings, speech is not just a tool for communication, it is a powerful vehicle for creating harmony, building relationships, and promoting understanding. But before we can speak mindfully, we must first learn to listen to the world around us, to others, and most importantly, to ourselves. Silence is the gateway to this kind of mindful speech, as it allows us to clear away the noise and distraction that cloud our judgment and hinder our ability to speak with clarity, kindness, and truth. When the mind is still, we are better able to choose our words with care, to speak with intention, and to communicate in ways that are aligned with our highest values. Right speech, as outlined in the Buddhist path, is not merely about avoiding harmful words or falsehoods, but about speaking in a way that fosters peace, understanding, and compassion. It is a practice that begins with the cultivation of silence, a silence that allows us to pause before reacting, to listen deeply to what is being said and what is unsaid, and to find the right words that can heal, uplift, and connect. The cultivation of silence creates a space in which we can reflect on our words before speaking them. How often do we speak impulsively, driven by emotion or a desire to be heard, without considering the impact of our words? Silence teaches us to slow down, to be present with our thoughts, and to recognize the power our speech holds. In those quiet moments before we speak, we have the opportunity to choose words that are aligned with the truth, with compassion, and with the intention to bring about positive change. Silence, in this sense, is not only about the absence of sound, but about creating the internal space necessary to speak with mindfulness and integrity. In Buddhist practice, right speech goes beyond the simple idea of refraining from lying or speaking harshly. It encompasses the idea that our words should be beneficial, truthful, and timely. But how can we discern whether our words are beneficial if we are caught up in the noise of our own thoughts and desires? Silence is the space where we can clearly distinguish between words that serve the highest good and words that may cause harm or confusion. In this space of stillness, we can assess whether our speech is contributing to the well-being of others, or whether it is merely serving our own ego or agenda. The practice of mindful listening is another crucial aspect of right speech. In silence, we become more attuned to the subtle nuances of conversation, to the underlying emotions and intentions behind words. Listening is not just about hearing words, but understanding the intent behind them. When we are still, we can more fully engage with others, hearing them without the distraction of our own thoughts, judgments, or preconceptions. This deep listening creates the foundation for speech that is not only truthful, but compassionate, as we are able to respond to others in a way that addresses their needs and concerns, rather than simply reacting from our own perspective. In the Buddhist tradition, right speech is also intimately connected with the intention behind the words we speak. Silence offers us the opportunity to become aware of our intentions before we speak. Are we speaking to build up, to heal, to comfort? Or are we speaking out of frustration, anger, or a desire for validation? Silence helps us become conscious of these motivations so that we can align our speech with our deepest values. This awareness transforms speech from a mundane act to a mindful practice, one that carries the potential to positively influence our relationships, our communities, and our own inner peace. True silence, the kind that cultivates right speech, also requires patience. In a world where we are often in a hurry to be heard, silence teaches us the value of waiting. Waiting to speak, waiting to listen, and waiting to understand. Often, we find ourselves speaking not because we have something meaningful to say, but because we feel the need to fill the silence, to be seen and heard. But silence allows us to resist that urge. It teaches us that the pauses in conversation are as important as the words themselves. When we are patient, we are able to listen more deeply and speak more thoughtfully, responding to the needs of the moment rather than our own impulse to be heard. Through silence, we also begin to understand the nature of compassionate speech. In Buddhism, speech is seen as an extension of the heart, a way of sharing our inner wisdom and compassion with others. But compassion in speech is not about being overly gentle or avoiding difficult truths. It's about speaking in a way that takes into account the other person's feelings, needs, and experiences. Silence teaches us to connect with our hearts before we speak, ensuring that our words come from a place of genuine care and understanding, rather than from a place of judgment or criticism. In the stillness, we can feel the pulse of our compassionate nature, and when we speak from this place, our words have the power to uplift, to heal, and to bring clarity. Silence also allows us to practice self-awareness, which is vital for right speech. Often, the words we speak are influenced by unconscious biases, past hurts, or unresolved emotions. When we take the time to be still, we become more aware of these internal influences, and we can choose to speak in a way that reflects our true intentions rather than our conditioned responses. In silence, we can recognize when our words are coming from a place of fear, anger, or ego, and we can pause before reacting. This pause allows us to speak from a place of calm, understanding, and wisdom, rather than from a place of reactivity or defensiveness. The practice of non-attachment is also closely tied to right speech. When we are attached to being right, to being heard, or to controlling how others perceive us, our speech becomes tainted by our need for validation. Silence allows us to release these attachments, helping us to speak with more humility and openness. By letting go of the need to assert our dominance or prove our point, we allow our speech to become a tool for connection rather than a weapon for control. Silence teaches us that we do not need to dominate the conversation or have the last word in order to be heard. It teaches us that listening, understanding, and responding with compassion are the most powerful forms of communication. Through silence, we also begin to recognize the impermanence of words themselves. Just as thoughts and emotions come and go, so do the words we speak. In silence, we become aware that words are temporary and that the impact they have on others is also transient. This awareness frees us from the need to control or perfect our speech. We begin to understand that our words are just one small part of a much larger conversation, a conversation that is always unfolding, always evolving. In this recognition, we can let go of the fear of making mistakes and speak with more authenticity and confidence. In Buddhism, speech is not only a personal practice, but also a collective responsibility. The way we speak influences not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. Silence teaches us the importance of this responsibility, as it creates the space for us to consider how our words impact others. When we are mindful of our speech, we are more likely to speak in ways that foster understanding, peace, and unity. We understand that words have the power to build or destroy, to uplift or harm, and that it is our responsibility to use them wisely. The cultivation of silence also leads us to a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of speech and action. In Buddhism, right speech is not just about the words we say, but also about how those words are reflected in our actions. When we speak mindfully, our words align with our actions, creating harmony between our inner and outer selves. Silence helps us to connect these aspects of our being, ensuring that our speech is not disconnected from our actions, but is a reflection of our true nature. This alignment between speech and action brings integrity and authenticity to our lives, allowing us to live with more clarity and purpose. Ultimately, silence creates the foundation for right speech by teaching us the power of stillness. In this stillness, we come to understand the true value of our words, not as tools for manipulation or control, but as instruments for connection, understanding, and compassion. When we quiet the mind, we can listen deeply to ourselves and others, allowing our speech to be aligned with the deeper truths of our being. Right speech is not just about speaking the truth, but speaking from a place of kindness, understanding, and wisdom, and silence is the tool that allows us to cultivate this. Through silence, we learn to speak with clarity, humility, and compassion, knowing that our words are not just sounds, but expressions of our true nature, shaping the world around us in powerful ways. Building on the understanding of how silence nurtures our ability to speak mindfully and with compassion, we now shift our focus to another profound aspect of Buddhist practice: the art of listening. But not just listening in the conventional sense. We are talking about listening deeply, listening to the present moment with full presence and awareness. Silence, in this context, serves as a gateway to experiencing the present fully, allowing us to connect with the reality of the moment in a way that goes beyond the surface level. It's in this deep listening that we can touch the essence of reality, where true understanding arises not from external information or intellectual analysis, but from directly engaging with life as it unfolds. When we think about listening, we often associate it with hearing sounds or words, but there's much more to it than that. To truly listen is to be present in the moment, to engage all our senses and awareness, and to absorb the totality of the experience without judgment, without distraction, and without expectation. In the silence of our minds, we are no longer caught up in the constant stream of thoughts that usually pull our attention away from what is happening right now. Instead, we become fully attuned to the present moment, to the flow of life as it is. In this space, we are able to hear not just the sounds around us, but also the deeper messages and subtle rhythms that life offers. In Buddhism, there is a deep connection between mindfulness and listening. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment, and listening is one of the primary ways to cultivate this presence. However, it is not enough to simply hear. We must also listen with full awareness. The difference between hearing and listening is crucial. Hearing is a passive act, while listening requires active engagement. When we listen to the present moment, we are opening ourselves to the total experience, fully embracing what is happening without filtering it through the lens of our expectations or past experiences. The Buddhist practice of listening to the present moment is deeply connected to the principle of impermanence. Life is constantly changing, and the present moment is always shifting. Every thought, every feeling, every situation is in flux. Silence allows us to be present with this ever-changing nature of life. Instead of clinging to what has already passed or worrying about what is yet to come, we focus on what is here and now, knowing that this moment will never come again in the same way. Through deep listening, we begin to perceive the subtle flow of change, understanding that each moment contains its own unique essence. This understanding frees us from the need to control or grasp at life, allowing us to fully experience the richness of the present without attachment. One of the key aspects of listening to the present moment in Buddhism is the practice of non-judgmental awareness. Our minds are constantly labeling, analyzing, and categorizing our experiences. We judge things as good or bad, desirable or undesirable, pleasant or unpleasant. However, to truly listen to the present moment is to suspend judgment and simply experience things as they are. This is where silence plays a crucial role. It creates the space for us to observe without reacting, to simply be with whatever arises without imposing our own narratives or expectations. It is through this non-judgmental awareness that we can begin to see things clearly, without the distortions created by our conditioned minds. In the silence of our minds, we also begin to hear the deeper layers of our own being. Often, our lives are so busy and chaotic that we forget to listen to the quiet voice inside, the voice of our intuition, our deeper wisdom, or our true nature. Silence allows us to reconnect with this inner voice, guiding us toward greater understanding and self-awareness. When we stop the constant mental chatter, we create the space for our true self to emerge, free from the distractions and the noise of the world. This self-awareness is not just an intellectual understanding, but a felt experience, a direct recognition of who we are beneath the layers of thoughts, emotions, and identities. Listening to the present moment also requires a release of attachment to our own agendas. When we are overly focused on our goals, desires, or outcomes, we block ourselves from truly experiencing the moment. Silence allows us to release this attachment, opening ourselves to the flow of life as it unfolds. We no longer need to control or direct the course of events. Instead, we become participants in life, fully present and receptive to whatever arises. This sense of surrender doesn't mean passivity. Rather, it is an active engagement with the present, allowing life to unfold without interference. Through deep listening, we also learn to cultivate compassion. When we listen fully, not only to our own thoughts, but to the experiences of others, we begin to develop empathy and understanding. In silence, we hear the unspoken messages, the emotions, the needs, the struggles that lie beneath the surface. Listening becomes a way of connecting with others on a deeper level, of recognizing their humanity and responding with kindness. Silence opens our hearts to the suffering of others, allowing us to act from a place of true understanding rather than judgment or fear. Listening to the present moment also deepens our understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. When we quiet our minds, we begin to see that everything is linked. Our thoughts, actions, and experiences are part of a larger, ever-changing web. The practice of deep listening reveals that nothing exists in isolation. Just as we are attuned to the present moment, we begin to perceive the connections between ourselves and others, between ourselves and nature, between the seen and the unseen. This awareness of interconnection fosters a sense of unity and shared purpose, leading to more mindful and compassionate interactions with the world. Silence is essential for insight. In the stillness, we are able to listen to the deeper layers of reality, the truths that are often hidden beneath the surface of our daily lives. These insights come not through analysis or intellectual understanding, but through direct perception. By being present with the moment, we begin to see things as they truly are. We recognize the impermanence of all things, the interconnectedness of life, and the emptiness of fixed identity. Silence is the key that unlocks these insights, allowing us to perceive the world without the distortions of our habitual thinking. True listening also involves being fully present with the experience, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant. In our everyday lives, we tend to avoid discomfort, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. However, deep listening allows us to embrace both the positive and the negative aspects of life without judgment. It teaches us to be present with whatever arises, to meet life as it is rather than as we wish it to be. This acceptance of the full spectrum of human experience is a powerful aspect of Buddhist practice, as it frees us from the constant pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Through silence, we develop the strength to face whatever comes our way with equanimity and peace. Listening to the present moment also enhances our wisdom. Wisdom, in the Buddhist sense, is not simply knowledge, but the ability to see clearly and respond appropriately to the situations in which we find ourselves. Deep listening creates the space for this clarity to arise. In silence, we are able to see the deeper patterns of our behavior, the underlying causes of our suffering, and the interconnected nature of all things. This wisdom is not intellectual, it is experiential, arising from the direct engagement with life in the present moment. The more we listen, the more we come to understand the nature of reality, and the more we are able to act in ways that are aligned with truth and compassion. The practice of listening to the present moment also invites us to engage with patience. In a world that values speed and instant results, silence teaches us the value of waiting. It teaches us that understanding and insight do not come quickly, but require time and space to unfold. Silence, in this context, is not about rushing through life, but about being present with each moment, allowing it to reveal its fullness without haste. This patience is not a passive waiting, but an active, engaged presence in each moment, where we allow life to unfold at its own pace. In the quiet moments, we begin to realize that life itself is the teacher. Often, we look for answers in books, in others, or in external sources of knowledge. But when we listen to the present moment, we recognize that life has always been teaching us through our experiences, our relationships, our challenges, and our joys. Silence allows us to hear this teaching clearly, without the distractions of the mind or the pressures of society. It invites us to become students of life, open to learning from every experience and every encounter. Through deep listening, we also learn the importance of humility. Silence teaches us to listen not only to the world around us, but also to the wisdom within. We come to understand that we do not have all the answers, that we are not separate from the world, but part of it. This humility opens our hearts to others and to life, allowing us to speak and act from a place of respect, empathy, and understanding. Ultimately, listening to the present moment in silence is an act of awakening. It is through this practice that we wake up to the truth of our existence, to the reality of the world as it is, without the layers of illusion or distraction. In silence, we connect with the deepest part of ourselves, the part that is always present, always aware, and always attuned to the flow of life. Through deep listening, we come to understand that the present moment is all there is, and it is in this moment that we find true peace, wisdom, and clarity. In conclusion, the practice of listening to the present moment is one of the most profound and transformative aspects of Buddhist practice. Silence plays a crucial role in this process, as it allows us to quiet the noise of the mind and become fully present with what is unfolding. Through deep listening, we come to understand the impermanence of life, the interconnectedness of all things, and the wisdom that resides within. This practice opens our hearts to compassion, clarity, and insight, guiding us on the path toward true liberation. As we've explored together, the quieting of the mind is not just about escaping the noise of the world. It's a doorway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe around us. From the subtle language of silence to the Buddha's voice to the unspoken truths of life, we've learned that silence holds the power to unlock wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Each moment of stillness becomes an opportunity to listen, to hear not just the surface-level noise, but the profound truth that lies beneath. The quieter you become, the more you can hear, and in that hearing, life reveals its richness, its impermanence, and its deep connection. Now, as we wrap up, I invite you to reflect on your own journey with silence. Have you experienced the subtle wisdom that silence offers? Do you feel ready to embrace the stillness, to uncover the deeper truths in your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration of stillness, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our community for more insights and wisdom on this path. Let's continue to grow together and discover the power of silence.